We see a man ready for combat cursing at his enemy. The other boy with glasses defends himself while the attacker says he will defeat him today. One of the blows ends up hitting the boy with glasses in the stomach. He feels the hit and screams in pain. A girl then asks them to stop hitting Dongu, but she seems more concerned with taking a selfie and recording. A boy next to her asks if the boss heard that while the fight continues and the girl keeps recording video with her phone. The boy said that Park Song-yeon, the second-year boss, went to the cafeteria to steal food and ended up getting beaten up. Ju Byung-kyul adds that the other got beaten by the transfer student who arrived today. The top-ranking student Park Kang-wook says that Park Song-yeon is not the type to be defeated that easily. The girl, still recording videos on her phone, gets close to the boy and asks him to look at the camera. She then says that this is the famous boss of Sumun High, Park Kang-wook, and asks him to introduce himself to the crowd. The boy curses and she says, upset, that he can't do that while he tells her to get out of there because she's annoying and asks why she wants to film him. The fight still continues in the background while Ju Byung-kyul says she started this a few days ago planning to post the videos on YouTube. As we see Sumun High's annual calendar, the other boy asks what that was and what was the point of recording videos and posting them there anyway. The second in command agrees and asks what they will do about it while the other guy sees something on his phone, not paying much attention. He adds by asking what they'll do about the new transfer student while the other stops the fight and tells the boy with glasses to bring him money tomorrow or he'll get beaten. The leader says that since Park Song-yeon is his direct junior, if he doesn't step in, the entire hierarchical chain will collapse, so they'll get the new guy after school. Suddenly, someone opens the door to the room they're in. The boy who was hitting the other, still holding the kid's hair, looks at the door. A man walks in asking a question. With a serious face, almost as if he were bored, he says he heard the school boss was there. The girls in the room are surprised by the boy's good looks. He looks at the boy in front of him and asks if he's the boss, while the other responds asking who he was to show of asking so many questions. Suddenly, the boy's face trembles all over as he takes a blow from out of nowhere. Then he falls like a sack of cement, leaving the boy with glasses looking surprised. The boy seems in disbelief as he looks down and sees his aggressor unconscious on the floor. The girls look scared as they stare at the scene. The second in command stands up asking who the boy was and why he had punched his friend. He goes on asking where he thought he was, saying he couldn't just barge in like that, and if he didn't know who they were. Scratching his ear, the boy says he doesn't know because he just transferred and asks if they haven't heard of him, since news seems to travel slowly in that school. The number 2 asks if he's joking with him if the boy wanted a fresh start and transfer to their school. Then he lightly punches the boy in the chest, asking if he's crazy and saying he came there on his own and asked where he was. The boy then manages to stop another quick punch that number 2 throws mid-air. Number 2 lets out a desperate scream as he feels his hand being mercilessly crushed by the firm and determined fists of the furious boy. Trying to react, he twists the boy's hand and asks if he's the boss, but gets a solid punch as a negative answer. In an agile move, he turns around and points directly at the boss, who is distracted, calmly messing with his phone. The boss takes on a worried expression, realizing that his own allies have abandoned him and now seem like real traitors in the face of the threat. Wasting no time, the new boy charges forward with impressive speed, aiming directly at the boss as if he already knew what to do. An extremely strong and direct punch is delivered to number 2's face, clearly showing the power of the new challenger. He collapses to the ground brutally, just like the first, both unconscious like sacks of cement tossed after heavy construction work. The students around watch with their mouths agape, shocked by the absurd strength and overwhelming confidence of the new boy in the fight. Without showing hesitation, he steps firmly over number 2's fallen body and moves determinedly toward the frightened boss. Standing before the boy, he looks him in the eyes and firmly asks if he really is the boss of that problematic school. The boss, surprised, lifts his gaze and questions if the boy has gone completely insane or if he's simply lost his mind for good. In the blink of an eye, a precise and fast blow hits the boss square in the nose before he can react. The newcomer, with firmness and precision, delivers a punch so strong that the boss's foam flies far from his hand. The impact of the punch was so brutal that the boss's head was thrown back as if he had taken a sledgehammer to the face. He quickly gets up, cursing the attacker, saying that he hit him cowardly while he was still sitting. The new boy, still looking bored, asks why he was still sitting and says he should have been on his feet a long time ago. Then we see the boy clench his fist tightly, making it clear he's about to deliver another powerful punch. The punch hits the boss square in the face with impressive precision, making a dry sound echo through the room. Both remain standing, but the boss, after being hit in the face, loses balance and starts to stumble backward, disoriented. Without giving any chance to respond, the new boy immediately prepares another punch, maintaining the pressure and the relentless pace of the attack. The second punch comes with even more force and hits straight in the center of the boss's face, without any mercy or hesitation. In the momentum of the attack, the new boy practically leaps over the boss, who falls to the ground completely defeated and unresponsive. Before he can touch his back to the floor, the new boy kicks him in the nape of the neck. The kick was so strong that it sent the boss flying backward into the window, cracking the glass with the force of the impact. Again, the other 3 boys in the room say, with their mouths agape, that it's incredible. Then we see the scene of the girls still surprised, looking at the new boy standing in front of the kneeling and defeated boss. The boss seems to be unconscious on his knees with his face all messy. The new boy asks if he wouldn't have come after him even if he hadn't gone there. Walking to the door, he says the boss shouldn't hold a grudge against him, and if he does, he should go tell him about it. He then leaves, slamming the door. The boy with the glasses who was getting beaten up at the start gulps hard, still not believing what just happened. The girl who was recording videos on her phone says the boy is very handsome. We then see outside of the school near the water fountains while two people talk, and one of them asks if it's so he can deal with each one individually. He then, again sounding bored, asks how much he'll get paid for it. The boy with the glasses is left speechless, staring at the guy. While during exercises, he says it hasn't been long since he arrived in Korea, but if the boy needs his strength, then you should pay for it. The boy with the glasses says that normally people do that out of a sense of justice, that with great power comes great responsibility. The boy says that he is strong, and being strong, he has the duty to protect the weaker ones. The other then tells him to forget that without money, he won't do anything. He starts to walk away when the boy with glasses tells him to wait and listen to what he has to say, that he also saw him yesterday. He says that people like him desperately need help. The boy with glasses continues saying that even at that moment, some of his friends are barely managing to endure the pain of every day. He then remembers himself with a swollen face attending classes while the teacher watches. The teacher ignores the fact that the boy's face is swollen and tells them to open their books to page 54. Then he remembers another scene where he was getting beaten, and his attacker said that's what would happen if he tattled to the teachers. He felt like every day was as if he were walking in the dark with no sign of light on the path, but that the day before, the boy had shown them something they didn't know existed. That in that damn darkness, a ray of light would appear. The boy then emphasizes again how strong the other is and asks for his help. However, the new boy with his bored look tells him to get out of his way. The boy with glasses then thinks that his emotional appeal didn't work, while the other says he understands what he's saying but needs money because he has his own problems. The boy with glasses then remembers all the times he was extorted by the school's bullies. He then begins to gather strength to shout. He lets out with all his might the question of why everything is always about money. Why would a student desperately need money? A few seconds of pure silence pass. Then the new boy asks if he heard about the assassins. The boy with the glasses wonders why he suddenly brought that up. Then he says that his father is the head behind the world's largest assassin organization, that he was born and raised in that world. The boy then thinks of that name, Blackheads. He continues saying that some time ago his parents separated. The girl, who had been listening to the conversation from afar since the beginning, wonders if the Blackheads really got divorced. The boy continues saying that his father always made his mother cry, so he and his younger brother went to Korea with their mother without having planned anything. He says his father got very angry and blocked all the accounts in their names. He continues saying that he would like to live in the highest place in Korea. The boy begins to walk away saying he has a job interview and that either way he needs money. The boy with the glasses wonders if he's supposed to believe any of that and doesn't know if the other is the kind of person who makes that kind of joke. Suddenly, he makes an offer of 50,000 won per person. The boy then stops and slightly turns his head back. The boy with glasses has a serious face waiting for a response while thinking he should have offered 55. Then after a few seconds of pondering, he turns back and tells the boy with glasses that they have a deal. The girl, who is still filming from afar and paying attention while hiding, says again that the boy is very handsome. We then see a group sitting on benches eating while one of the men says that the stupid Park Kang-wook lost to a single transfer student. The one who said that was the captain of the judo club named Park Ju-hyung, while adding that the transfer student defeated 3 people on his own. Another person says that for now, it seems the money supply will be cut off. The vice captain of the judo team, Park Ju-dong, with a slice of pizza in his hand, curses the others. Meanwhile, a boy crouched like a horse mask says that if he stands up, he'll get caught, while the other says he's there to fight and doesn't care about being caught. He says through the mask that they are dangerous, that they are on a completely different level than Park Kang-wook. He continues explaining that those are truly the bosses of Sumun High, the judo twins Park Ju-leong and Park Ju-dong. To keep their records clean and become national athletes, they use Park Kang-wook to collect money for them, completely draining people like him. The other boy, looking bored, asks if he has to fight them, and our boy with glasses confirms. The girl watches the video she recorded earlier on her phone of the conversation between the two. She asks her friend how the boy's voice can be that good. One of the judo twins asks her why she's staring like that and tells her to show him too. The girl says she won't show him because he promised her he would quit smoking and didn't, as we see the new boy running toward them. The judo man curses the girl and says he'll let this one slide just because she's pretty, but she better not dare speak to him like that again. Next, our new guy hits the judoka on the head with his knee, making a loud sound. The judoka screams in pain and falls to the ground after being hit. The girl stands up startled, saying it's the transfer student who just arrived. The judoka begins to drool and foam at the mouth while being watched by our new student. The judoka's brother asks who he is and why he did that without being provoked. Then he drops the poor man's flash drive from his hand. He screams, asking how the guy dares to be that handsome. Rushing at him, he asks if he wants to die. The new student doesn't seem to pay attention to him and stays calm. The judoka notices and wonders why he's so calm, as if he's not even in a fight. He looks around asking if the boy called his friends and wonders where the heck he's focusing his eyes if not on him. When he looks at the same spot the new boy was looking at, the new boy turns and prepares a blow against him. Caught by surprise, he doesn't have time to react to the punch coming toward his face. The punch hits him right in the eye. The judoka starts to stagger backward from the force of the punch. Without giving time to react, our new guy lands another blow between the boy's legs. Our boy with glasses, still wearing the horse mask, is completely stunned at the sight. The judoka sees stars from the strength of the blow hitting such a sensitive spot. To finish, while the other is crouched, our hero prepares a final blow. The hit lands directly on the man's face. The girl stands up and says she feels dizzy after seeing so much beauty, and her friend asks if she always gets like this, while the other confirms. She seems about to faint and with a completely blushed face says the boy is really very handsome. Our new boy stands looking at the bodies of his defeated enemies. A boy walks by asking for people to make way while handing out flyers. The flyer says that the boy Kim Doyle will punish the judo twins with a drawing of him defeating people. Next, we see the boy Kim wearing a crown and a red cape with a completely bored expression. Then we see that he's being carried by clearly nerdy boys with glasses, while one of them says he defeated the heads. He goes on explaining that even though he defeated the leaders, some of their henchmen are still wandering around the classrooms trying to show their influence. They need to clearly show them what happens when they do bad things. Another boy shouts that the king is passing by as we see a boy looking love-struck. Kim says they can do whatever they want as long as he keeps getting paid, but he's going to charge extra for that nonsense. Then he realizes he's only being paid with 10 bills. He remembers that just the day before, he defeated 4 people, 2 vampire pigs and 2 henchmen, and then asks the nerds if they should count them too. The boy says no, that he only asked him to defeat Park Juhyong and Park Judong. Just those 2. Our new guy tells him to cut the nonsense and just pay the 100,000 he owes him. He says the boy looks rich and that 200,000 shouldn't be anything for him. We then see the boy is wearing rubber slippers, and he stops upon hearing that. He turns and asks how he knew that, and if he approached him from the start already knowing. Then we see him asking 2 boys why they help him, asking if his family is rich, and both confirm even though they don't help him because of that. Our boy, still dressed as a king, asks him what he's talking about since the whole school knows. And he also says that after all, it was him who approached the new kid, not the other way around. He then tells him again to stop the nonsense and pay him quickly, and that he'll also charge extra for the parade stunt. The boy smiles and gives him an okay sign and says that's fine. We then see someone picking up a flyer that is now spread all over the entire school. Obviously, the girl was staring at the picture on the flyer saying that he was very handsome, and her friend, clearly not very impressed, says he must really be good looking. Her friend continues saying that the whole school can only talk about that everyone is staring at the flyer. The girl then stands up angrily and asks who's the hussy looking at photos of her husband. She decides to look around her classroom paying attention. All of her friends and classmates are holding a flyer in their hands admiring the boy. She starts to boil with rage and yells for everyone to stop looking. Cursing all the girls, she says for all of them to stop looking at the flyer immediately, saying that if she sees the girls looking at the flyer with the photo of her husband again, with a psychopathic look, she stops in front of one of them and says she'll send her to have a talk with God easily and asks if they understood. As she was approaching another girl who didn't even have the flyer, her phone starts to vibrate wildly. Her friend nearby notices that her phone starts ringing. The girl was still ranting about how the other girls were looking at her husband's flyer when her friend calls her name and points at the phone. She looks at me with a confused expression. We see some threatening messages on her phone. Still holding the flyers in her hand, she looks at the messages, surprised. That same night in some hidden alley, someone says the target of the night is that man, and we see a blonde boy sitting on another's back named Jang Hyunwoo from Cheonwoo School. Then from the top of a building, we see our boy with glasses still wearing the horse mask saying that that's the king of Southeast Seoul. He adds that the boy is one of the subordinates of P. Jikyul from Ilgyung School. As one of the executive members of the 12 Nations, he is undeniably powerful, to which our new student asks what the 12 Nations are and the other says he'll explain later. The boy says to focus today on Jang Hyunwoo, that he's not an opponent he can underestimate. He says the boy is a 3-time amateur boxing tournament champion and has much better physique and instincts than a normal person, that even the judo twins fighting together against him stood no chance. Our newcomer says he also beat the judo twins, and the nerd tells him to take it seriously, and that what's really scary about that boy is his cruelty. They say that apparently once he gets obsessed with you, you're done. They say he'll beat you and push you to the edge to the point that you wish to be dragged away. The boy says once he snaps, there's no telling what he'll do, that he'll watch from here, and if things get out of control, he'll call the police. When he thinks about continuing and looks to the side, he realizes he's been alone for some time. Jang Hyunwoo looks at a girl in front of him and calls her beautiful Mina. He looks at her and asks what that is. We see Park Kang-wook and Ju Young-kil with swollen faces, while the other says that if she had just answered the phone when he called, none of that would have happened. The girl says she doesn't care because they're not friends, and Park Kang-wook gets offended, saying they're close, and she says no because they're no longer the bosses of the school. The boy remains silent for a moment, reflecting that when she wants, she can really be very mean and unpredictable in her actions. The other one laughs and says it's exactly because of that strong personality of hers that he could never give up on trying to win her over. The girl stares at him attentively with a confused expression, trying to understand exactly what he meant with those strange words. The boxer, with a malicious look, shows a small and cruel smile, clearly planning something he hasn't revealed yet. Putting his hands together in a nearly pleading gesture, he says he's begging her to go out with him on 3 different dates. After a few seconds of awkward silence, he finally breaks the mood by asking why she's looking at him with that strange expression. As he stands up abruptly, he knocks over the boy he was using as an improvised chair, making him fall to the ground with a loud and unexpected thud. With an almost maniacal look, he promises that the date will be fun and unforgettable, so she can start truly trusting him. Without warning, a bottle comes flying quickly toward him, nearly hitting his face and creating sudden tension in the air. The boy noticed the bottle coming just in time thanks to his sharp reflexes and the attention he maintained even in the midst of chaos. With incredible reflexes, he ducks at the last moment, making the bottle hit the wall behind him and shatter into many pieces. At that moment, our newcomer appears on the scene and lets out an exclamation of pity, clearly expressing his reaction to the unexpected situation that just happened. He then says it's a shame he didn't finish it all at once. The girl notices it's the transfer student and that he came out of nowhere. The boxer then stands up and asks who he is. He says he's the one who came to beat him up, while the girl gets a love-struck look, wondering if he came there to save her. As our boy walks past her, he notices her and wonders what's up with that girl, that everywhere he goes, she's there too, and that it probably isn't a coincidence. He wonders if she's following him and thinks even her gaze is weird. Then he stops beside her and gets her attention. He grabs the girl by the face and says he doesn't know what she's plotting, but if she tries anything against him, he'll send her to have a talk with God. The boxer then gets angry and says the guy showed up out of nowhere. Jumping at our boy, he finishes the sentence saying now he dares to lay his filthy hands on the girl. Park Kang-wook thinks that now Jang Hyun-woo is going to use his most famous move, a surprise jag, while running. The nerdy boy with the horse mask and glasses says that speed is incredible and hopes Kim Doyle knows how dangerous it is. Suddenly, we see liquid flying through the air. The boxer notices it and wonders if it's really liquid. That liquid hits his hand while he asks what the hell it is. He thinks he doesn't know what it is, but that it feels strange and wonders if it's some kind of chemical liquid. Then our newcomer says that he's going to shock people if he runs at them suddenly while turning into a kick. He warns that if the other is too shocked, he might end up spitting on him by accident because of the scare and the confusion of the moment. The kick delivered by our newcomer lands squarely in the boxer's abdomen, causing immediate pain and making it hard for the opponent to breathe. Surprised by the strength of the hit, the boy's mouth falls open, unable to believe the impact he just felt in his body. Calmly, our hero wipes the blood from his mouth with the hem of his shirt, showing he's still steady in the fight. After the hard impact, the boxer manages to control his body, stopping his sudden motion and trying to regain balance to continue the fight. He yells, cursing at our newcomer and asking if he's messing with him, but then he notices our boy is swinging a chair down at his head. He then wonders what's wrong with that guy who just spat on him and now suddenly comes at him with a chair out of nowhere. Then our newcomer says it's a lie, quickly lowers the chair, and uses his other hand to land a solid punch to the boxer's chin. The boy only has time to think how crazy that newcomer is. Rage then takes over him and it makes him recover quickly and charge our newcomer. He tries to land a punch, but our newcomer dodges it easily. Again, he tries another blow, and again Kim dodges. But we notice that the strength of the boxer's punches is such that it ends up slicing a lock of hair from our hero. Park Kang-wook thinks the boxer's punches are sharp and terrifying, and that no matter how strong the transfer student is, it's impossible to beat Jang Hyun-woo. Our boy then, after dodging a third strike, prepares to land his punch. He hits the right side of the boy with precision, who immediately groans in pain, feeling the force of the blow that hit him hard. Ju Yong-hyul turns to Park Kang-wook and asks what's impossible, while the first wonders if he thought that out loud. We see our newcomer's hand on the boxer's stomach. He then notices that his right rib is injured. Suddenly, we see Kim's hands grabbing the chair legs again. Seemingly reading the boxer's mind, he responds that those aren't the ones that will break. Then, landing the chair hit on the opponent from the other side, he says those are the ones that will be broken. We hear the unmistakable sound of ribs breaking and the boxer's scream of pain as he tries to catch his breath. He kneels down and screams in pain while holding his chest. Two of the other friends who were standing remain in shock, watching the scene. The boy who was being bullied with a half-shaved head and a dirty mouth also looks on, not understanding what's happening. Our hero then slams the chair on the ground again, positioning it properly. The boxer is clearly having trouble breathing. Our boy then sits on the chair and asks what he was trying to say again. We see our nerd with the horse mask thinking that if he caught the boxer bullying or doing bad things, something would happen. Our newcomer says he doesn't remember the whole speech. He then pulls the speech from the voices in his head, saying that if he kept walking around bullying others, he'd have to deal with our hero. Our newcomer continues threatening the boxer in indescribable ways while the bullied boy looks on in shock. The girl, completely in another world, thinks they shouldn't be fighting over her. She then seems to lose strength while thinking how cruel and competitive that society is. The next day, we see a punching bag with a bruised man inside. Someone is taking off a pair of boxing gloves. That person then asks what the name of the school is again. He asks if Jang Hyun-woo really lost to someone from that school and if he was actually hospitalized. Then he asks if it was more than one person who attacked him and what was going on with those damn cowards. The boy begins to take off his second boxing glove while smiling and says he'll have to deal with them himself after such a long time. Smiling, he then wonders if it's not time to crush some worms. And the one who says this is Am Jong-beom, rank 4 from Ilgyung School. Am Jong-beom asks if everyone is there. Park Kang-wook confirms that they are. Then he quickly changes his attitude and starts stammering, saying yes, everyone is there just as he asked. However, Jongbyum says that even with everyone there, it still feels kind of empty. The other says that many of his boys are hospitalized after trying to steal food from the school cafeteria, and Jongbyum asks about the Judah twins. Embarrassed, Kangwook says they're also hospitalized because something serious happened to their sensitive areas. Clearly losing his patience, Jongbyum asks if the boy is joking with him. Then he punches the other in the stomach, making him double over in pain. As he bends down from the blow, the boy grabs him by the hair. He pulls the boy until they're face to face and asks if he thinks this is some kind of joke and if he needs help getting back to reality. Meanwhile, he thinks that unfortunately the news is all true and wonders why he's the one getting punished and not the one who actually did all that. He slaps the boy on the head and says to everyone that it's been a while since they saw him, and maybe that's why they don't understand how serious the situation is. Raising his hand for another slap, he yells and asks if this is fun for any of them. While putting his hands in front of his face to block the slap and protecting himself, Park Kangwook shouts that it was the transfer student. Jongbyum's hand stops in midair at the revelation. Then he continues saying that the food theft, the Judah twins, everything that happened was because of the transfer student. Sweet and cold, he continues explaining and puts all the blame on the transfer student. The other then asks where that boy is now. We see a blackboard with the words club activity written on it. Then we see one of the desks filled with those flyers praising Kim. The girl keeps dreaming her dreams and thinking that thanks to her being clumsy, she ended up in a situation with the transfer student. She looks at a photo she took of him while thinking that the boy in profile is very handsome and is killing her with passion. In the next photo, he's looking directly at her, noticing her. Then he comes closer to her, saying that he had told her to stop acting like an idiot. We then see the camera image completely blurred as if in motion. The camera is pointed at the floor as we hear the boy threatening her, saying he'd take her to a place where no one would find them, but she seems excited by that. She's still staring at her phone, completely love-struck, rewatching the video on a loop. The teacher then, at the front of the class, asks for hands to be raised for the film club. The girl and her friend raise their hands enthusiastically. The teacher smiles and says, as expected, the film club must be a very popular activity. Then she notices that almost everyone in the room raised their hands to apply as well. The girl looks at the rest of the class, wondering if they came back like a group and how they dare join the film club. She says that club wasn't for people who spend the whole day staring at books, that it was the body and soul of club activities, a sign that things were going well. Full of inner hatred, she growls at the people and mentally screams for everyone to stay away from her beloved club. One of her growls ends up slipping out and the classroom stares at her, kind of embarrassed by the girl's behavior. Meanwhile, we see our boy drinking juice and saying he needs to know who that girl is with. The nerdy friend asks who, and he says he knows who. It's that weird girl who keeps staring at him, and the friend says her name is Seol Mina. Then he thinks he never saw that girl among the black heads and considers the possibility that his father sent her, and his friend asks if he's still on that theory. He then asks what club he joined for the activity club, and he reveals he joined the Enon Club. The nerd friend thinks he joined the Enon Club, the place where every otaku can rest in peace. He then thinks that a handsome and popular boy like him joining the Enon Club is absurd and wonders how much more territory he'll take from them. Suddenly, the newcomer snaps the nerd out of his thoughts by asking why he wants to know that information while we see Park Kangwook pointing at him. Jongbyum raises his hand and tells the boy to stop talking about the wrong reasons for being there. Then he smiles and asks if that boy really left Jang Hyunwoo in that condition, and the other confirms, saying that's the psychopath. The two then walk in silence toward the boys. The nerd friend says he's also part of the Enon Club and that it's hard to accept him, so he should think it over while the group gets closer. Our newcomer finally seems to notice the little gang approaching. Suddenly, he stands up, startling his friend. A second later, he starts running. His friend, confused, asks where the boy is going, that it's fine, he'll accept him into the club. There's no need to run away. Our boy runs at an alarming speed. Park Kangwook sees that the boy is running toward them. He thinks he knows the boy is crazy but wonders if he'll attack the moment he sees them. Then he wonders if the boy is trying to take the initiative and thinks it's a good idea, but that it's a superficial trick. That trick clearly won't work at Iljung. Jongbyum sees the boy running toward them and says he's a thug, very different from the norm, almost refreshing. Then he says men don't need to talk, that he acknowledges the other as a tough guy, and since he's charging in, why not? He then throws a punch at our newcomer, who dodges. Preparing to throw the next blow, Jongbyum notices that the boy dodged the first hit easily. Then he turns and delivers the second punch quickly. Our boy rolls on the ground to dodge the second strike and ends up behind him. Then he wonders what could be wrong with that boy. We then see Mina talking to her friend, saying that the transfer student must have joined the film club after all. He wouldn't join a small club like the Enon Club. Suddenly, he appears in front of the girl, scaring her. She's startled that he appeared out of nowhere in front of her, but admits that she actually saw him coming that way and went there too. Several of the flyers she was holding fly through the air. Falling on the floor, hit him on top of the girl. He asks her who she is and why she keeps bothering him. While the girl nearly has a breakdown, he asks her if she's going to keep taking lots of pictures and why she's collecting those flyers and if her father sent her. Completely red, she asks him if he's already talking about family with her. Meanwhile, Jongbyum watches the scene, thinking about how easily the boy dodged his punches. Then the veins on his face begin to bulge as he thinks that his fists were completely ignored. Our boy yells to Mina to tell her father he'll never come back again, while she wonders if it's because of her, and Jongbyum comes running after them. He then jumps and comes down on our boy with a kick, shouting how dare he ignore him. The nerdy friend then shouts for Kim Doyle. He grabs the girl and quickly spins to the side. We then see that if he hadn't done that, Jongbyum's blow would have hit both of them directly. The girl doesn't understand what just happened, but is happy he'd be so close to the newcomer. Jongbyum says he should be stomped on and dragged away, so he won't be crawling around while our rookie asks what the other wants. He says he doesn't know what business he has with him, but asks why he didn't run when he was given the chance. Then he finishes by saying that even if he prays now, it's irreversible. Quickly, Jongbyum asks what he's talking about as he charges at him with a punch that our hero quickly dodges. But Jongbyum is good and immediately throws another punch, which our rookie also dodges. Then we see a series of blows launched at our rookie, and he keeps dodging and defending against all of them. However, we see one final strike launched and one final dodge executed. Seeing an opening, our boy prepares his counterattack. Suddenly, we hear a whistle and both stop in front of a man dressed in red who asks what the two punks are doing. Next, we see Wang Deshil, the head of the students, asking why people from other schools have been walking around there recently. He calls the punks and asks which school they're from, while Jongbyum tells our boy he got lucky. He goes on to say that boomers are always a problem, that they always show up at the most important moments and mess things up. Then he puts his hand in his pocket, pulls out a pack of cigarettes, and takes one out. Soon after, he leans in and tells our protagonist that their conversation isn't over yet, that he'll see him after school. Taking his time with the lighter, he lights his cigarette, slowly blowing out the smoke while observing everything around him with a calm and relaxed look. Right after that, he calls his friends and orders them to quickly leave that place before something worse happens. Suddenly, something unexpected hits Jongbyum hard, making him spit out the cigarette he was smoking and look visibly surprised by the impact. Then we see the surprised faces of the instructor, the nerdy friend, and Mina as our boy says he's a pest after landing a surprise blow. Jongbyum is left on the ground, apparently unconscious. Park Kang-wook thinks the boy hit the back of the other's neck with his elbow. He keeps thinking what kind of lunatic he is to aim at someone's neck, and that now that someone from Iljing High was taken down, the rookie is screwed. The nerdy friend thinks he crossed a line he shouldn't have, that he hasn't even defeated a mid-level boss yet. Sometime later, in a nice apartment on a sloping street, someone pours boiling water from a kettle. Then we see a heavily tattooed man with a girl beside him asking the other, tied to a chair, if the water is hot, while the other screams in pain. The tattooed man asks him why he's running, and we see that the girl beside him also has her arms tied. He lets the kettle fall to the floor. The man picks up a lit cigarette and brings it close to the girl's face, saying he gave them a place to stay and asking if this is how they repay him for the help. As he asks what he said would happen if he caught them, he brings the lit cigarette close to the girl's eye. He adds that he said he would gouge her eyes out if that happened. Then he keeps getting closer to the girl's eyes with the cigarette. But at the right moment, his phone starts to ring. Complaining, the man pulls the phone from the back pocket of his pants. The girl collapses to the floor beside him, completely in shock. Answering the phone, we see there are other tattooed men in the house too, most of them on their phones. While he answers the call, we see there's a woman in the bathroom and two more men in the kitchen eating. The tattooed man is named I'm Jongshan, and he asks what happened with Jongbyum at Sumun High. We see the map of Korea while someone says that the man who can greet anyone, anywhere in the country, the 12 most influential delinquents in the entire nation. They call them the 12 national delinquents. We then see our boy asking why he's making such a fuss about it, and he's already annoyed to be doing cleaning duty at school. The instructor asks how long it's been since he transferred and if he's been cleaning the second floor bathroom all week. While spinning the broom, he tells his friend not to just stand there and to get out, but the nerd says that it's not something that can be swept away so easily. The friend says he has no idea what he's done, that he messed with the 12 delinquents and ended up crossing paths with Jin Shangul, which wasn't even part of his original plan. He continues saying that now he's messed with the first police, that they won't let it slide, but our boy doesn't seem too worried. Next, our protagonist says that actually the one who started it all was the nerd, that because of him everything in his life has turned into a pain. Then he says he's fed up with it all and tells him not to come to him with those jobs anymore, that he'd rather get a job somewhere else. The friend asks what he's saying, that he pays well and it's not worth quitting now. Then with a threatening look, our hero turns around and tells his friend to get lost. The nerd stands frozen, eyes wide in fear and surprise. We then see, sometime later, the boy walking through the streets with his backpack. Suddenly, Park Kang-wook appears, slapping the back of his neck and calling out, saying that if he sees his senior on the street, he should at least say hi. The nerd looks at him with an annoyed face while he asks why that expression and warns that if it keeps up, he'll send him to talk with God real quick. Suddenly, Park Kang-wook stops and looks past the nerd to see our protagonist standing there staring at him. Then he remembers the pamphlet that said if Kim sees someone doing something bad, he'll come find them. Laughing nervously, Park Kang-wook says it was a joke and asks why he'd make a face like that at a friend. Then we return to the present, with the nerdy friend thinking that the past few days had actually been kind of nice. Remembering another moment, his friend asks if he wants to skip lunch and check out the snack shop, and he agrees, saying it's a brilliant idea. He thinks it's been a while since they've gone to the snack shop alone. Then, holding up a shirt, he says it smells good when rubbed and asks someone if they swap the scent with Tahunis, The boy thinks that he even tried wearing the gym uniform. Then we see him noticing the classroom desk shining and looking impressed, thinking it doesn't even have a single fingerprint on it. The boy keeps walking the streets in the present and thinks that now it's time to head back. Suddenly, a boy in a red jacket throws his arm over his shoulders and says he found the friend of that other guy, the one he saw earlier at the gate. Our little nerd looks on, shocked and surprised by who just showed up out of nowhere, not understanding exactly what's going on in that tense and unexpected moment. The boy responds with a sly and confident smile, showing he's in control of the situation and enjoying the tension. We see several trash cans pile up in a dark alley, creating a dirty and uninviting setting for what's happening. The trash cans are placed under an old building near a parked white car, suggesting that something important is going down there. Jongbyeom, nervous, rubs the back of his neck and asks where that bastard is, confessing that the more he thinks about him, the more anxious and worried he gets. Our nerdy friend is kneeling, scared of saying he doesn't know where the other could be hiding in that difficult moment. When the answer doesn't satisfy him, Jongbyeom loses his patience and kicks the nerd hard in the face, showing his growing anger. The kick sends the nerd's glasses flying, leaving him even more vulnerable and disoriented in the situation. The other boy says that if he doesn't know, he should call the guy and ask him directly to solve the problem. Our friend holds his face, trembling and hurt, clearly scared and beaten down by the violent situation he's facing. Shaking all over, he grabs his phone with difficulty and starts typing nervously, not quite sure what to do. On the phone screen, it's clear that he's not calling his friend, but rather the police is seeking help in the face of danger. His finger trembles intensely as it hovers over the green button to make the call, hesitating out of fear of what might happen if he calls the police. Suddenly, a blonde boy appears behind him, asks what he's doing, and leaves him shocked, frozen, and frightened. The scene shows the door of a nearby shop silent, which will soon become the stage for the next tense events in the story. Inside the store, the automatic door opens with a beeping sound, revealing the setting where the situation will soon unfold. Right after, we see the nerd getting beaten up while the blonde complains that he tried to call the police, asking what the police have to do with any of this. Our boy curls up on the floor, trying to protect himself as the kicks keep hitting him, leaving him vulnerable and frightened. While they kick him, they ask if he's called the police before and say he's nothing more than a wanted cop. Somewhere else, we see a famous fast food restaurant and someone saying that someone has no experience with part-time jobs. The manager asks our protagonist what his specialty was again, hand-to-hand combat, and if his hobby was really weapons maintenance. He thinks the guy is even good-looking, but has absolutely no experience that matches the kind of work needed there. The manager says his resume is impressive, but that they're a restaurant and nothing on there fits what they need him to do. Suddenly, two people enter the restaurant. He gets up and says those guys are back again and tells the boy to come by later and buy a burger, but unfortunately, there's nothing they can do. One of the guys shows a photo on his phone and says that every time he eats a burger from there, his stomach hurts and asks what that is near the lettuce, if it's a cockroach. Another person checks their sandwich and sees something black in it too, but it's just an olive. The manager then walks up to one of the guys and asks why he's doing that again. He says that every time he eats burgers from there, he ends up with a stomachache and loses weight, and the manager tells him to go talk about it in the back. Smiling and pulling the guy, he tells the girl at the register to take out $300,000 while saying to the guy that they're going to have a drink too. The chubby guy says not to pull him, that he's assaulting a minor and that it's a crime and that he's going to report him. He accidentally bumps into our hero. Next, the chubby guy looks back with a confused face. Our boy, looking bored, says what the hell is that? Meanwhile, our little nerd is lying on the floor while the blonde grabs his phone and says they don't even seem like friends because he doesn't have our hero's number saved. Jongbyeom says he's pretty upset because he was waiting at the main gate of the school, but it looks like he managed to slip away. He then spits near the nerd's face on the floor. He gives the boy another kick while telling his friends to leave. Then they start walking out while our boy lies on the ground, hurt and thrown aside. We see that our nerd's glasses ended up all bent and broken after the beating. Then we see the second-ranked student of Iljeon High, I'm Jongshin, saying that the collection team was properly trained. The fifth-ranked student of Iljeon High, Choi Hyoching, says that from today onward, the collection should be raised to 50. Another man says he told them to bring enough food to feed all the kids, while Jongshin says it sounds good. He keeps walking and says that now that they're out there, they should take the chance to do a location check. Our hero ends up passing by him and their eyes meet briefly, but nothing happens. Then the store door opens slowly, revealing the interior and setting the stage for what's about to happen. The group walks in slowly and quickly notices the two chubby guys unconscious on the floor of the burger joint, one of them with a mouth full of scattered fries. Jongshin stands still, observing the scene carefully, trying to understand who could have caused such an unexpected situation. In his mind, Jongshin wonders who would have the guts to commit such a bold and violent act in his territory. The people who were eating nearby are completely shocked and stunned to see such an unexpected and disturbing scene. Both the manager and the cashier are left speechless, unable to believe what they're witnessing at that moment. Jongshan wonders if this was the work of the Sikdong crew, and judging by the reactions of the people there, it wasn't anyone still inside. Then he remembers passing by our protagonist just a moment ago on the street, and remembers seeing the boy's shoulder dirty with something. He then gives the order for his friends to go after the guy who just left there wearing the Sumun High School uniform. Seeing the delay in the response to his orders, he shouts for them to do what he told them right now. Meanwhile, our boy is sipping his soda, thinking that his money is almost gone, and that even if he got a job now, he'd only get paid at the end of the month. Still thinking about money, he notices someone in front of him, and when he looks closely, he sees our little nerd. He says he heard there was a part-time job opening there that day and decided to come by just to ease his conscience. With his face all bruised, he smiles at our hero and says thank God he's still safe. Our hero, seeing the nerd's condition, asks where he got into another fight again. In the meantime, Choi Hyo-chang spots our boy and shouts to his crew that he found him. Then he says his name is Choi Hyo-chang and asks our boy to come over to him for a moment. He then moves his finger like someone calling another person toward him. As time passes and nothing happens, he shouts again for our boy to come to him now and asks if something's blocking his ears. Our boy thinks for a moment and asks the nerd if it's still worth 50,000. The nerd then smiles and asks if there's no compensation. Then out of patience, Troy says the skinny guy must really be deaf and doesn't hear what people around him are saying. He prepares a punch saying that maybe if he beats him up, his hearing will come back. But in the middle of his speech, a cup of soda flies into his face and leaves him confused. Meanwhile, our hero grabs his arm and uses a body movement to throw him to the ground. The boy crashes heavily onto the ground, feeling the impact of the cold asphalt on his back, which makes him completely lose his balance. The strong impact causes Choi to lose his breath for a few seconds, making it hard for him to recover from the blow. Without giving any chance for reaction, our hero quickly raises his fist and prepares a strong punch coming from above toward the face. The chubby guy stays frozen, completely unresponsive as he watches the punch come fast toward his face, unable to defend himself in time. The sound of the fight echoes through the alley, and the camera shows the building's trash cans nearby as the chaos continues. We can still hear the sounds of the fight while the scene shows a parked bicycle nearby, silent and unaware of the confusion going on. Finally, the scene focuses on the chubby guy's hand, which is bent and clearly injured, a clear sign of the violence of the fight. His friends are left speechless, watching the beating their friend is taking, not lifting a finger to help. Our boy then exhales after putting in that effort like it was nothing. Suddenly, he slightly turns his head to look back, and Choi Hyo-chang's two friends realize they're the next targets. While running his hand through his hair, our hero asks the nerd if the performance bonus is still on. Our hero devours the noodles with pleasure, making that classic, exaggerated slurping noise. The dish is called gambajetti, a tasty pasta served with a dark sauce and a bright yolk right in the center. The nerd comments that considering the flavor and the cost, no other dish comes close to competing with that gambajetti. While the camera passes over water jugs stacked in the corner of the restaurant, the two keep chatting naturally, as if nothing had happened. Our hero demands the promised reward, insisting on the performance bonus, while the nerd asks for more time to think him a fair amount. Out of nowhere, as calmly as possible, our boy drops the amount of 5 million, as if it were a regular number. The nerd nearly chokes on the noodles when he hears the absurd amount, and Kint responds coldly that there's a specific condition involved. The condition, said with total seriousness, is simple and brutal. Eliminate completely everyone involved with Iljeong High. Faced with that insane demand, the nerd just stands still, staring at our hero in complete silence and visible shock. Then he starts laughing maniacally, asking what kind of madness that was. Then he asks why Kim would even need that much money in the first place, and he says he already mentioned it. His dad blocked all his finances. The nerd says it's about that blackhead stuff again, and our hero asks him why he lives like that. He says that for a rich kid like him, what does he need to stop getting beaten up by everyone all the time, and says he did some research on his family. Then he asks why the boy doesn't go to a private school without bullies, or what his parents do when they see him coming home all beaten up. The little nerd thinks for a moment and after a while responds that neither of them is in Korea at the moment. Our hero then says he doesn't care, that he should stop being an idiot and whining in corners, and that's exactly why people treat him like a fool. He opens a plastic bag and we see another lunchbox inside, which our hero says he'll eat too. Next, he gets up and says he's leaving, but the little nerd asks why he's going so early. Seeing that our hero is really leaving, the nerd waves goodbye and tells him to get home safe. Passing nearby is Mina, who's applying lip gloss when she notices our boy. She sees the opportunity appear in front of her while our hero exhales, clearly out of patience. Not far away, we see the bodies of the defeated delinquents scattered on the ground. A man clenches his fists so tightly that his veins look like they're about to burst. The man demands that they immediately contact Sumun High and call Park Kang-wook over. Then, full of hatred in his heart, he shouts Park Kang-wook's name. Elsewhere, we see Kang-wook looking at his phone and wondering why they're bothering him again. One of the 3 major delinquent schools in Seoul, the one that controls the southwestern region of the city, is called Iljeong. There have been students who were forced to go there given the circumstances, but the overwhelming majority of students there have police records or kids who can't attend normal schools. That school is so messed up that it has a designated smoking area for underage students. Not even the teachers at that school are normal, frequently accepting bribes from students to turn a blind eye to their illegal activities. The school principal, in fact, is rumored to have once been a gang member. But of course, the biggest problem at that school is the 12 nations and their leader. His name is Pidgey. He was the one responsible for uniting all the factions of Iljiang, which had been divided for a long time, and he did it through brute force and now leads everything, doing whatever it takes for money. Starting with motorcycle theft, insurance fraud, seduction crimes, restaurant extortion, and so on. Using whatever means necessary, he only cares about money. They even say he's so brutal he's already sent people to go have a chat with the divine personally. Then we see a sign posted on a building wall while our little nerd asks if now he understands. With his unicorn mask on, he keeps asking if Kim understands where they've gotten themselves into by choice and asks what kind of weapon his friend is carrying. Our hero says it's a weapon that fires rubber bullets and then reminds his nerdy friend of the agreement, 5 million plus the performance bonus. Wearing the unicorn mask, he says they should leave quickly because that place is way too creepy, and even the cops that look the other way when it comes to that school. Our boy says that's even better, and our nerd asks what he means by that. Then our hero approaches a group of random boys and asks if any of them is Pidgey, to which our nerd says clearly none of them is. One of them asks who those idiots are, and another notices their uniforms are from Sumoon High, while another asks how he dares to say that name like that. Then we hear the rubber bullet gunfire, and we see one of the projectiles on the ground and the boy jumping. The next shot hits the boy square in the face, making his neck twist sharply and completely involuntarily. The friend just freezes his mouth agape, unable to react to the absurd and violent scene he just witnessed with his own eyes. Stunned and silent, he slowly turns toward our boy, unable to form a single word in his shock. Suddenly, he charges forward in fury, shouting that the boy has completely lost his mind and has no sense of danger or consequence. The moment the idiot gets close, our hero reacts coldly and hits his face with the butt of the gun, without hesitation. Taking advantage of the momentum from the previous action, our hero quickly cocks the weapon and fires mercilessly right at the brat's foot. He screams in pain, and when he looks up, our hero is holding the weapon like a club, ready to bring it down on his head. And that's exactly what is confirmed the moment he, without realizing it, ends up getting hit hard right on his left shoulder. The loud, dry crack that echoed made it clear to everyone that the small shoulder bone had fractured badly. He becomes completely confused, unable to decide whether the freshly broken shoulder or his injured pinky toe hurts more. Right after, the weapon is pressed against his head, forcing him to immediately stop the screaming and desperate crying. With great caution and pain, he slowly lifts his face until he can directly meet the firm gaze of our hero. With a maniacal smile on his face, our boy coldly demands that he bring Pidgey there immediately. No Stalin. Meanwhile, we see Jongbyum still with his hand on the back of his neck, thinking his head is still numb and holding a juice box. He thinks that if today were collection day, he'd be chasing after the boy at that very moment, while someone approaches him with an envelope delivering the collection. Then he thinks that skinny protagonist is lucky and wonders what the hell is that gun sound he's hearing. Then the boy in the red jacket opens a nearby door running and says they're in big trouble. He doesn't even turn and asks if the boss showed up or something like that. Then he starts stammering and says it's not that, it's about that damn kid from Sumoon High. Suddenly, he gets Jongbyum's attention. Then we see Park Kangwook, with his nose runny again, standing still. Then we see that in front of him is number 2, Jongshin, talking on the phone while someone tries to explain that there's a spy or someone armed nearby. The boss gets extremely irritated and asks the person on the other end to speak clearly because he's not understanding anything. Meanwhile, Kangwook thinks that none of this has anything to do with him, that he knows nothing about a spy or anything like that. We see one person unconscious on the stairs. We see another one collapse on the ground in a corner. Our hero points his weapon at 2 girls, asking if either of them is Pidgey, while our little nerd in a unicorn mask says that's the name of a guy. He looks at the boy and says he should have said it was a guy from the beginning. A noise catches his attention and makes him turn forward again. Something flies toward our hero's head, which he easily dodges. Then we see that it was the juice box Jongbyum had been drinking, and he says our hero isn't crazy, he's completely insane. He asks who the hell our hero is anyway, and if he really is totally nuts while a group gathers behind him. Then with his hand over his face leaving one eye exposed, he asks why the hell he got himself into the tiger's den. Our boy quickly aims the weapon in the direction of the enemies. Suddenly we hear only the click of an empty gun, and everyone puts their hands in front of their faces while our boy laments. He drops the weapon to the ground, saying he used up all the ammo. Jongbyum grits his teeth, staring at our hero. Cursing the boy and asking if he really wants to be dragged away, he leaps forward, launching an attack. Trying to land the first punch, our boy dodges by turning to the side. He puts his hand inside his jacket as if he's going to pull something out. The enemy notices the hand in the jacket and wonders what the hell he's about to pull out, what kind of tricks he might use at that moment. Taking advantage of the enemy's distraction, our hero lands a knee strike right in his chest while saying he was fooled. Meanwhile, in the Iljiang School Annex, several bodies lie on the ground as 2 teachers walk by and wonder what happened there. Teacher of a Jeonju tells her colleague that they should call the police, but the colleague says this is common at that school and the police will take ages to arrive. He adds that even the principal warned them not to interfere with the students' business. The teacher thinks while observing the unconscious boys on the ground that since the incident with Pidgey, he hadn't seen anything of this magnitude. And he also notices the cut camera cable, saying that suddenly the school's monitoring system went offline. He also notes that the cell phones have no signal and wonders what the hell is happening at that school. Elsewhere, we see someone loading weights onto a bench press bar again. People are watching a man working out and think that no matter how many times they see it, it's always impressive to watch 200 kilos being lifted like it's nothing. The man who is working out grabs his cup and takes a big gulp. He says that for the weight, that amount of protein actually tastes pretty good, and then asks what they said. The guy says a command was given and that all executives were to be at the school in 20 minutes. Then they say a spy infiltrated the school, and we see Ilgyeon's number 3, Park Jinju, receiving the news. Jeonbyeom was a talented child with gloves on his hands from an early age. Some older students say it's amazing how he defeated all the 6th graders by himself. A few years later, someone named Park Yuchun from Sodong School introduces himself to Jeonbyeom. But he refuses to see himself on the same level as others and starts beating the man who had just introduced himself. He couldn't hide his anger toward inferior beings. It was as if his life had been made to reign above the weak. Jeonbyeom was born with the power to control everything and everyone. Smiling at the boy, he makes him swallow a worm and even mocks him, saying he's committing cannibalism by eating creatures of his own kind. Then we return to his fight against our boy, with him throwing a quick punch and our hero dodging. Again, he tries a side punch, but our boy ducks quickly. With the other fist, he attempts an uppercut, but it's clear Kim is superior in speed as he dodges once more, starting to make Jeonbyeom angry. The rage is heating his face as he wonders why the hell he can't land a single hit on the boy. Then Kim puts the broom he was holding in his face and says the reach difference between them is too great. He steps back, thinking this isn't how the fight was supposed to be going. In a fast, determined burst, Jeonbyeom lunges forward with the clear intent to strike our boy with an upward blow from below. His fist cuts through the air at an impressive speed, so fast it looks like a blur, hard to follow with the eyes. However, as usual, the strike doesn't hit the target as Kim dodges it masterfully and with precise timing. Taking advantage of the opening left by his opponent's mistake, Kim lands a direct, solid punch to Jeonbyeom's chin without a moment of hesitation. The impact is so strong that Jeonbyeom is thrown backward, crashing hard to the ground, his mouth wide open. The blow is so intense that even Jeonbyeom's sandal flies off his foot, flung far by the absurd force of the hit. Still dazed from the blow, Jeonbyeom struggles to pull himself together and finally manages to sit on the ground, trying to catch his breath and regain balance. In the next second, as he's still recovering, we see Kim's foot dangerously close to his face. He quickly ducks, making our hero's foot whistle past above his head. Looking up, he thinks he's screwed if the fight keeps going this way. Then he wonders where that boy came from, having never heard his name before. Trembling, he thinks the kid came out of nowhere throwing kicks like a soccer player. It thinks that if he hadn't dodged, that kick would put him down for good, that Kim isn't here to play around. Our boy says he has good reflexes, snapping him out of his thoughts and back to reality. Then he says that, actually, he was aiming to incapacitate him. Jeonbyeom keeps staring in disbelief at our boy. Our little nerd with his unicorn mask stands stunned as he hears Kim say that he warned him from the start. Jeonbyeom was screwed from the moment they started fighting. Then our hero throws the broom behind him and says they're going for the legs now. He says with an extremely terrifying look that for a while, Jeonbyeom won't be able to walk. The broom he threw then hits the ground with a noise. Jeonbyeom is frozen, sweating, and his face is bruised all over as he stares at Kim. Then he starts thinking that this boy can't talk like that, as if he were the top dog, while remembering his own history of always being above others. Completely losing his mind, he starts attacking our hero while yelling that he knows who he's talking to. Once again, the punches are thrown by the enemy and dodged easily by our hero. Then Jeonbyeom shouts again that the boy knows where he is to be acting like that. Kim just exhales calmly, showing total disinterest, as if to say that none of it matters to him in the slightest. In a movement so fast it was almost invisible, Kim hits the enemy square in the face, making him stagger backward and completely lose his balance. Without giving him time to react, Kim unleashes a brutal sequence of attacks, striking various parts of the guy's body with fast and well-placed blows. To end the sequence, Kim delivers an impressive punch right to the center of Jeonbyeom's face, hitting him with relentless force and precision. The boy in the red jacket starts to sweat cold, paralyzed by fear as he witnesses his friend being completely massacred before his eyes. Our hero finishes the exchange of blows by knocking the enemy to the ground with such force that it makes him spin and fall awkwardly. The friends watching the scene remain standing, completely speechless, unable to believe what they are seeing happen before them. Jeonbyeom can barely move, completely destroyed by the beating he took, his body covered in marks and his expression exhausted. Viewed in terrible shape, Jeonbyeom tries once again to get up, coughing with difficulty and fighting against the pain he feels throughout his body. The boy manages to get halfway up, his face already messed up and breathing with difficulty. Kim approaches him while he's on his knees with his hands on the ground. Then he tells him where he is and says that this is just a high school. The enemy looks at him in shock as if those words were absurd to hear. Then Jeonbyeom looks at the friends behind him and asks why they're still standing there looking like idiots doing nothing. It all seemed like they'd just been pulled out of a dream when their friend addressed them. The boy yells at the top of his lungs for those guys to get Kim. The unanimous reaction of everyone present was to remain still, and Jeonbyeom notices this, yelling and asking why they're just standing there, and tells them to go after him now. Elsewhere, we see a staff member standing next to an antenna on top of the building. Jongshin is on the phone cursing everyone for not answering his calls, but we know the network is blocked. Someone then asks why there are people from Iljeon High School walking around there. Another person asks if that guy over there was Jongshin and then says he really does look scary. Suddenly, Wang Duxiu, a teacher, appears and asks what those boys are doing there looking at the Iljeong students. He tells the kids to stop walking and come over to him. The group clearly ignores the teacher, and he notices this and asks if they're going to keep ignoring him while he's talking. Then he curses them and tells them to come over to him that very second. Jongshin stops and takes a deep breath. He turns and starts walking toward the teacher. The boy has one hand in his pants pocket. The teacher, holding a baton, asks what the boy's problem is. Then, while the teacher is asking why they're sneaking in there, the boy pulls a knife from his pocket and attacks him. The rest of the students and a teacher look on in terror at the attack. Jongshin says the teacher should know who he's talking to before acting all tough and scolding people. Then a few seconds pass and the teacher looks to the side, scared at the boy. Then he starts to lose strength and drops his baton, making it fall to the ground. The teacher is then pushed and falls to the ground in front of the boy. The boy fixes his hair and asks the teacher if he wants to be dragged away right now. Then he spits in the direction of the adult. After some time without a response, the boy asks if he has nothing else to say. Looking at one of his henchmen, he hands over the knife and asks what the hell the guy is doing, calling his attention. Then he says that he's the one who stabbed the teacher. Next, he tells him to confiscate everyone's phones and check them, and after that go to Chung-sik at the police station and turn himself in. He says he'll only get 2 years and 6 months in prison, and asks if he understood, to which the boy replies yes while stuttering. Jongshin then keeps walking as if nothing had happened. We then return to the scene of Jeonbyum coughing, his face completely in ruins. Our boy tells him to do his rehabilitation properly unless he wants to be stuck in a wheelchair forever. Kim, seeing that the guy was laughing, asked if he's some kind of lunatic or if he wants him to help fix his wrist too. Jeonbyum says Kim has no idea what he just did and asks if he knows what kind of person their boss is. Kim asks if it's that so-called Pichichiol, and the other guys say he's definitely going down for doing what he did. Then, out of patience, our boy asks where the hell this Pichichiol is. Out of nowhere, Kim is hit in the temple by a surprise kick. Our nerdy friend is completely shocked and shouts his name. We then see Park Jinju, number 3 of Iljeon High School, pulling back from the kick he just delivered to our hero, asking if he's the one who interrupted his training. Our nerd thinks he got hit square in the head by a kick, and even if it's Kim, that must have hurt. But upon closer observation, he realizes our hero managed to block the kick at just the right moment, thus avoiding a direct hit. Kim maintains a serious and focused look, carefully studying his new opponent, analyzing every movement and trying to anticipate the next attack. Right after, Kim directly asks if the guy in front of him is really the famous Pijichiol, wanting to confirm the opponent's identity. Without hesitation, the guy takes off his shirt, revealing his scars and marks, and confirms with a simple yes that he really is the so-called Pijichiol. In a completely different setting, a light rain falls over the boats anchored in the dark and silent port of Busan, creating a gloomy atmosphere. There, several people are hanging upside down, visibly injured and unconscious, as if they had been through a battle or some kind of brutal torture. It's at this moment we reveal the identity of Rank 4, a man named Kang Diep-chun, whose reputation and power are known and feared by many. With his back turned, a man with long hair listens to what's being said on the phone, held by another pair of hands. He then asks the person on the other end to repeat the name again. The man repeats the name of our hero, Kim Doyle, as we see several people hanging and many others in line behind the man with long hair. A spray bottle releases liquid when pressed. The man thinks while delivering a blow that his eyes are burning badly and wonders what the hell they put in those spray bottles. His attack misses our boy, who quickly grabs what seems to be a towel or a cleaning cloth. He then uses it like a whip to hit the big guy in the face. Clearly, he gets extremely irritated after receiving that blow. The friends continue watching Kim defeat yet another one of their bosses and friends in a humiliating way. The big guy asks our hero why the hell he fights in such a dirty and cowardly way. Our hero dodges another punch from the man, this time by ducking. The other then tries to deliver a kick, which is also avoided by our boy. Kang Diep-chun thinks that Kid is like a mosquito, dodging all the blows and moving from side to side. But mosquitoes are just mosquitoes, and one blow is all it takes to exterminate them. Then our boy wraps the cleaning cloth around the enemy's arm. He uses it to gain momentum and lands a solid knee strike right in the big guy's face. Kang doesn't get shaken by the knee and thinks this fight is really getting on his nerves and takes advantage of being close to Kim to try to grab him, but he escapes. The scene shows our hero with a cloth and a spray bottle on the enemy's face, while the enemy missed the grab and is now standing still in front of him. They stare at each other for a second, and our hero yells fire and starts spraying the cleaning product on the fighter's face. The other complains that the liquid went into his nose. Kim takes advantage of the enemy being distracted and lands a solid hit right to the man's face. The big guy then stumbles backward from the force of the blow he received. He manages to regain his balance and not fall to the ground while thinking that if there's a god of cheating, it's that kid. Kang Diep-chun blows his nose to get rid of the product that got in. Charging our hero again, he thinks the other has no idea how much protein he's consumed in his life and that he would never fall for a cheap trick like that. Then we see our hero's school jacket flying, and clearly, our boy has vanished. The jacket lands on his face, blocking his vision, while our boy comes in with a kick right to the big guy's face. Now he finally knocks him to the ground. The friends still watch in disbelief and fear from that fight. Kang Deok-chun falls on his back against a locker while cursing under his breath. He clenches his teeth and starts cursing Kim. Quickly, our boy appears in front of him, preparing another attack. Suddenly, we see his knee approaching the big guy's nose. The locker behind Kang Deok-chun is completely dented from the force of the blow that hit his face. Then we see other parts of the hallway as he is brutally struck by our Kim. The boy in the red jacket, who had fallen to the ground in shock, starts crawling backward in fear. The scene we see is Kang Deok-chun leaning against the locker, Kim standing in front of him with his jacket in his hands while the red-jacketed boy tries to move away. The nerd, who is still watching the scene, is shocked to see that our hero had cleared the way for now. Our boy tells the nerd that they finally got Pidgey Cheel. Meanwhile, the boy in the red jacket thinks it's absurd that Hyung can't even lift a finger, that this hadn't happened since the captain. Kim tells him to pay what he owes, but our nerdy friend says that guy isn't Pidgey Cheel. He picks up his weapon from the ground and says the big guy said he was, so there was no reason to doubt it. They keep walking while Kim tells him to stop stalling and pay up already, but the nerd says he's told him more than once that the big guy wasn't the target. Once again, we see the boy in the red jacket in shock, watching everything and sweating cold. A beautiful flower is in the middle of some trees during the day. Sometime later, the same flower remains beautiful, but now at night. Suddenly, drops of water start falling from the sky onto it, signaling the beginning of rain. Then we see a beautiful large building with rain falling from the sky. The building is Iljeon High School, and inside it, we see Jongshin arriving at the scene where our hero left several important and strong people unconscious. Jongshin puts his hand to his face and curses loudly as he looks at that. The next day, in the Anime Appreciation Club, a cartoon is playing on the television. The nerds are chatting while one of them says that Mr. Duxiel ended up in a hospital. Another asks if it wasn't Jongshin from Iljeon High, that he showed up out of nowhere and started tearing through their school looking for Doyo. While picking up a gyoza with his chopsticks, our hero asks if he's not one of Pidgey Cheel's henchmen. He also says that since they caught that Pidgey Cheel guy, the other one will show up there for a while, but the nerdy friend says that guy wasn't the target. He said it 1,000 times. Besides, he asks where the boy got that food, and he says he took it from the school cafeteria, and the nerd says that food is for the teachers who will be working, not for him. The conversation goes on for a while as we see that it's still raining outside. The nerd says he feels like all of this is happening because they ended up messing with the Iljeon crew, while the other friend asks why they did that. They start making plans to go visit the teacher in the hospital because they're feeling partially responsible and ask if Kim will go too, to which he replies that he won't. Mask Why Not Kim says their arguments didn't convince him, but the friend says he'll go to protect them because it's dangerous to walk around alone. Suddenly, Mina appears saying that maybe she should go with them too. Our nerdette says the girl is clearly dressed like someone from the film club and not the anime club, and Mina ignores him, greeting our hero. The girl says she had a change of heart and wanted to watch anime and asked to switch clubs, so now she's the new member of the Anime Appreciation Club. She then asks what are the chances of them meeting there and says it must be fate when we see the barrel of a gun pointed at her head. Looking at the gun Kim is pointing at her, the girl says she loves pistols while he says he doesn't believe in that fate nonsense. One of the students recognizes the gun as a Glock G26 and asks Kim to let him touch it, and he charges 2,000 per touch. Everyone then starts lining up to hold and touch the gun. Sometime later, we see a building with neon signs in the middle of the torrential rain. Someone says they were lucky because the injuries weren't deep, so his life wasn't in danger. Owonin says the principal advised that it would be better for him to stay home and rest for a while. The man says it's nothing, that the boys have mid-year exams coming up soon. He then says to tell the principal he'll be back next week. The woman says there he goes again, following the same habit, and then getting up, says that he's no longer in his prime. She says he's not well and tells him to stop being arrogant. Mina walks beside our nerd while asking where the transfer student is. Our nerd, with an angry expression on his face, says he has no idea. Then he thinks the boy didn't want to go to the hospital because the teacher made him clean things, and right after he jumped from the third-floor window like it was nothing. The girl then gets super hostile and asks him what the point was of her coming all the way there if he wasn't going to go. The nerd is about to argue something but gives up halfway. He tells her that if she doesn't want to continue, she can just leave. Then she says she already came this far, so she'll go to the end, but that it's frustrating. As he was about to open the room where the teacher was, he hears the teacher's wife asking him if he knows how long they've been married. He answers, as their hands touch, that they've been together for 20 years. She asks if he thinks she doesn't know him and also asks why he keeps everything to himself, that it will do him harm and eat him up inside. Suddenly, our boy appears holding a yellow box. Sometime in the past, the teacher says that starting today, he will clean the second-floor boy's bathroom for 2 weeks. Then he asks what the boy is staring at and tells him to get going. As our boy was leaving, he asks him to wait a moment. Kim stops and turns his face slightly back as he hears him ask if he lives with his mother and younger brother. He says that if that's the case, then he's the man of the house, and that even if he's terrible at school, he shouldn't cause trouble. Then the teacher extends his hand with a yellow piece of paper for him. Since he doesn't take it immediately, the teacher asks what he's waiting for and says that it's his number. He tells him to call if he ever needs an adult. Then he straightens the boy's uniform and tells him to stand up straight and says that everyone at that age is a little hot-headed. but he tells him not to keep screwing him up and then says that a man's pride is all he has. We return to the hospital with our hero finishing his memory of that moment with the teacher and saying he'll drop off the drinks and leave. Kim turns a corner and sees that the nerd is standing beside Mina at the teacher's hospital room door. Inside the room, the teacher is trembling and crying. He then complains and says that it's very humiliating. We see the same scene, but from outside the hospital window, where it's still raining heavily. The wife holds his hand firmly, saying he is a teacher to all people. He says that instead of protecting the students, he ended up being humiliated in front of all of them. Then he remembers Jongshin saying he was a weakling begging to be dragged away. He clenches his teeth, still with his arm over his face. The nerd looks down while the teacher wonders how he'll face the students again after that. Mina has a serious look and we hear the teacher saying he was humiliated by someone young enough to be his son. Then he asks again how he's supposed to look those boys in the eyes again. The teacher's tears are so many they drip to the floor. The kids remain waiting at the door of the teacher's room. Our hero hears it all with impassive eyes showing no emotion. The teacher continues crying uncontrollably, saying he has no excuses. A lightning bolt cuts across the sky as we hear PG Chiel ask if it was because of one person. We see a gagged and badly beaten face. Then PG Chiel finishes the previous sentence by asking if one person managed to defeat an entire school, and Jongshin says he has nothing to say. Trembling, he says he committed an absurd sin and begs for another chance to capture that bastard. PG Chiel interrupts him, saying he misunderstood the order. He says that if he really wanted to make up for the mess he caused, he would have already brought the boy to him. That now it's time to take responsibility, and then asks if he's going to own up to it. Screaming, the boy says he will take responsibility and accept any punishment he sees fit. Then a pair of scissors is thrown beside him. PG Chiel says he has to get 10 million in a week and that he is to cut off his left earlobe and leave it there with him. Jongshin screams that he will follow the orders exactly as given, and Pidgey says there's one more thing. Then he asks if he said the boy's name correctly and if it was Kim Doyle. Pidgey says he has 3 days to bring him in. We go to the lit-up entrance of an arcade. Someone says he should stop smiling while getting beaten, that it's because of that people think he's an idiot. Our hero is playing a shooting game and humiliating everyone while Mina records everything on her phone saying he's really good. The nerd then says he wasn't always called an idiot and didn't start getting beaten because of that. Then he remembers Park Kang-wook beating him and asking what he gained by snitching on them to the teacher. Then the next day, the same guy smiled maliciously at him while putting an arm over his shoulders, saying he had finally come to his senses. After making a 30,000 donation, he thinks that after getting beaten every day, he ended up becoming an idiot in the end. We then continue to see our hero playing the shooting game and doing incredibly well. The nerd complains that the boy isn't listening and that he's being serious while the girl keeps cheering for our hero to win the game. Our hero tells him to say something that makes sense then and to do it after the game ends. The girl says to leave him alone, they're on a date, but she gets dismissed too. Our nerd then stands there with an angry look on his face. Then he remembers the teacher in the hospital room saying he couldn't face the students anymore because of the shame he went through. He questions the others how they can be playing games at a time like that, while the girl completely ignores him and tells our hero to keep shooting. Since he's being ignored, the girl keeps telling our hero to shoot in the game. Then the nerd gives up, puts a hand on his head, and wonders why he even tries talking to our hero. He places a plastic bag on a bench and opens it, revealing a lunchbox saying that our hero will start whining about money again anyway. After wrapping his lunchbox in the plastic bag, he says he's leaving, turns around and starts walking away. Then he calls out to Medongu, while the latter wonders if that worked. But our hero only wanted to point out that he grabbed the wrong lunchbox. He yells saying that it's his because he's the one who paid for it. The rainy night continues as we see a lit-up building. Someone says they don't know where Kim, or whatever his name is, lives, but they know his lackey is buying an apartment there. Then we see a group following someone while they question her about which apartment and which unit, but the person stammers, saying she doesn't know. She then says she's trying to call him, but he's not answering, and she really doesn't know the unit number. The man wonders why he always gets dragged into this kind of crap when he has nothing to do with it, and who even knows people's exact addresses anyway. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the man punches him in the stomach. He loses his breath from the surprise hit. The force of the punch is so strong that the boy ends up flying backward. The man walks over to him again and tells him to find the guy another way instead of just waiting for a call that's never going to come. And then he starts stomping on the boy in the middle of the street while several people walk by and watch. Again, he wonders what he did wrong and why he's the one getting beaten because of all this. People around with their umbrellas stare in shock. We see that Jongshin is also there with a bandage on his ear. Another henchman nearby tells people to get out of there, that it's not a show or anything, and to just keep moving. The man then pulls the hair of the boy being beaten. He says he has 1 hour to find him and bring him there, or else he'll have a chat with God personally. All the boy could think was why he had to be dragged like that right there. Tears then start to well up in his eyes. He keeps wondering why people just stand there watching, why no one helps, and why no one calls the police. In the middle of that crowd, we see our nerd with a lunchbox in hand. From the other side of the street, he can see the absurdity of what's happening. Then, seeing that their eyes met, he turns his face away. But he wasn't fast enough because the man recognized him and started pointing, saying he's Kim's lackey. Then he points and calls out Midong's name. Some time passes and the rain keeps falling as lightning cuts through the sky. Our nerd is lying on the ground while several others surround him. We once again see the boy's glasses completely broken and smashed lying on the ground. Donggu seems half unconscious and groaning in pain. A boy then tells Jongshin that the guy refuses to help to the very end and says if they hit him anymore, he might pass out, and asks what they'll do next. Then the man closes his hat and wonders why these weaklings are giving them so much trouble. Our nerd, with a face full of hatred, glares at the guy. Jongshin looks at him with a maniacal expression. He crouches in front of the nerd and asks if he really doesn't know who they are. With a knife in hand, he asks if the rumors didn't spread through his school. He even dealt with one of the teachers, for God's sake. Our nerd keeps panting without responding. Then he remembers scenes of the teacher crying while they waited outside the hospital room. Then the thug says they just need to call that Kim Doyle guy to show up and that he knows eventually he'll call him. The man tells him to look at his situation and ask what more he can even do. Donggu then remembers his father asking him who he took after to turn out such a weakling. Pointing a finger at him, his father finally said that he's exactly like his mother. The thug, smiling, says he can't do anything and tells him to just call Kim and they'll let the boy live. Some time passes and our nerd is still saying nothing. Then he says very quietly that he's not an idiot, but the thug doesn't hear and asks what he said. He repeats, saying that he's not an idiot. With his face all beaten, he looks deep into the thug's eyes and says the real idiots are them. The other thug, desperate, puts his hand on his head and asks if they beat the kid so much that he's just spouting nonsense now. The guy then widens his eyes, hearing the things the boy said. Suddenly, he starts smiling and laughing maniacally. Then we quickly see a cut being made across half of our nerd's face. Our boy looks surprised. He didn't expect that. The wound begins to turn red. He puts his hand to his face and screams in pain while the other squats in front of him, observing closely. Jongshin puts his hand over his mouth, silencing him, and tells him to shut up. Then he asks if the boy thinks they're equals and explains that just because he talked to him doesn't mean they're close. He asks who the hell the nerd thinks he is, and says that when he tells him to kneel, he better bow before it's too late. Our nerd raises his trembling hand. His look is full of hatred toward Jongshin. He remembers our hero telling him to stop getting beat up like an idiot and fight back, and then he uses his raised hand to grab the attacker's arm. His memory flashes with the countless times he was beaten by bullies, and he gets angrier and angrier. The nerd starts screaming and pushing harder and harder, rage in his eyes. Jongshin smiles and asks if he doesn't understand Korean or something. Pulling his other hand back and readying a strike, he tells our boy to lower his head and look down. Then he lands the first blow, sending his head flying backward, but Jongshin was just getting started. We then see some beautiful nearby landscapes while the beating continues. Kang-wook holds his hands to his mouth, eyes wide, wondering why our nerd resisted and how that made things 10 times worse for him. We keep seeing beautiful scenery while the merciless beating goes on. Finally, we see our nerd's hand on the ground in the middle of a puddle of water. Jongshin says this is getting boring already and stands up. He starts walking away and says that when the boy wakes up from the beating, they should tear his mouth open if they have to, make him call Kim to come there. Our poor nerd is completely destroyed after the unbelievable beating he took. But even so, we start to see him show some reaction as if he wants to say something. Then, before the attacker could leave, he starts whispering something. He keeps remembering the scenes of the teacher crying in the hospital, the countless beatings he took even without any reason. Then he curses him, calling him a bastard, and says they're the ones who went wrong in society. Our boy continues and asks why they're the ones called idiots, while the bullies are the ones who are actually messed up. He keeps saying they're the ones who screwed everything up. They're the ones who are in the wrong in this story. Kang-wook is still in despair, thinking the boy should shut up or he's going to get dragged away. Then he says everything would be infinitely better if they didn't exist. He points his finger and says the bullies are the real weirdos. Jongshin looks back when he hears the boy's speech with a maniacal stare. The nerd then yells at the top of his lungs that they are the real idiots. Then a few seconds of silence follow as the rain falls. The bully then grabs his knife while saying the boy is completely wrecked, all beaten up and dirty on the floor. Then he turns and says he's still talking too much and asks if he's some crazy student lost in his own delusions of grandeur. He then prepares to attack our nerd using his knife. Hovering over him, holding the boy's hair, he wonders what would happen if he gouged out one of his eyes. Kang-wook can't hold back anymore and screams the nerd's name, Madonggu. With the knife ready, he says he'll see if the kid keeps talking once he's missing an eye. Donggu stares at him with hatred in his eyes. When the guy was about to stab the knife into Donggu's eye, they hear a gunshot. Jongshin halts the knife mid-swing when he hears the sound. He looks in the direction the shot came from. Then we see a piece of stick with a little flag coming out of a pistol barrel that reads, Kim Doyle, stay still. Our boy then talks to himself, saying he was supposed to get rubber bullets, not that, and tosses the pistol behind him. The chubby guy with long hair points at our hero, stuttering, wondering if he's really the one causing all this trouble. Jongshin stares at our hero with his usual dark gaze. Then Kim asks if our nerds switched their phones on purpose. He picks up the phone from the ground and sees the screen is completely shattered. Raising the phone, he asks the boys there who did that. Looking straight at his stunned Jongshin, our hero asks if it was him. Kidum looks around more carefully and analyzes the scene. He sees the lunchbox on the ground, tossed and scattered. He then says it looks like the man needs a proper beating, and he's not going to hold back. Jongshin gives a big grin while our hero still has his usual bored expression. Smiling, he asks if it was him all along and starts to introduce himself. Something cuts him off mid-sentence, and we see the look of shock on his face. Then he finishes the sentence as we see Kim's umbrella fall to the ground. A millisecond later, we see Kim behind the guy with impact zones showing where he struck. He says it's not possible and that this is unforgivable. Now we're going to hear the story of the karaoke bar incident in Silumdong. At the center of the incident is Yahello Nama, a gang of runaways that ruled the city of Silumdong. This gang used young girls to bribe local police, quickly becoming a prominent youth gang. We see a scene of a guy bothering a girl while a cop, recognizing who they are, tells another to just walk away. But apparently something happened at the birthday party of the gang's leader, named Lee Hochul, that changed the whole local dynamic. All 21 members were gathered for the big event at a bar. Suddenly, we see a boy with his head down open the door. In the end, all 21 members ended up severely injured, barely clinging to life. And the one who did all of that was a 13-year-old boy alone. The boy's name was Im Jongshin. It really didn't seem possible, a mere 13-year-old taking down opponents twice his size. And not just that, he defeated members of a gang so violent even the police didn't want to get involved. Since that incident, his reputation spread across the entire southern part of the city, and soon the gangsters started calling him a ghost. And well, now we see that same Im Jongshin getting beaten without landing a single hit on his opponent. Kim is standing in front of him while the boy is on his knees asking what the other guy even is. The hand holding the knife is trembling. Pointing it at Kim, he asks if the boy drugged him and insists on knowing what he did. Then he prepares another strike while shouting, asking if he thinks a bastard like him could defeat him. Kim quickly dodges to the side. We see the knife hand switch from a front grip to a reverse grip swiftly and smoothly. Jongshin comes back with the strike, but our boy once again dodges it with ease. He screams in rage and keeps charging forward. Another strike is thrown and another one misses. Once again, a rapid succession of stabs in the air is unleashed while Kim continues his strategy of only dodging, looking for an opening. Spotting that opening, our boy finally prepares a blow. Jongshin seems to notice a second before where the hit is going to land. Then his chin is struck hard by Kim's punch. He starts falling backward, letting the knife fly out of his hand while thinking he had managed to read the strike and wonders why he can't dodge the boy's punches. The knife lands noisily on the ground. The boy manages to stay on his feet, barely after taking that hit. He then wipes his face. Again, he asks what the boy did to him. Screaming, he asks when that started happening. Suddenly, we see one of his ribs crack and break. He then clutches himself, screaming in pain while Kim says the boy is being dramatic for no reason. Kim asks why Jongshin blames him for his own weakness. He asks if the boy can accept the situation, if he's going insane, and if he knows why this is happening. Raising a finger and motioning for him to come over, Kim says it's happening because the enemy hasn't been beaten enough and says he's going to fix that. Jongshin clenches his teeth and shows a fearful expression. Cursing Kim, calling him a bastard, he runs at the boy again. He tries to land a punch on Kim, who dodges it without even taking his hands out of his pockets. He uses the missed punch to attempt a kick, thinking the boy is too slippery. The kick clearly misses again. The enemy, full of rage, wonders why he can't land a single hit already. But as he finishes the spin of the missed kick, he sees Kim's fist coming toward his face. The punch hits his face squarely. He wonders why he can't dodge a single one of Kim's hits, even when he knows he's the target and still can't do anything about it. In the next second, it's like he's staring down the barrel of a gun. Jongshin can't react in time to defend against any of Kim's punches, and there are many. The final punch makes him lose his balance at last. Almost falling to the ground, we see Kim prepare another punch aimed at Jongshin. Suddenly, he stops. Then, as Jongshin staggers and pants heavily, Kim says that this place is a hidden gem. Looking with his usual bored expression, he compliments the boy's tenacity. With his face in ruins, he just stares back at Kim, his feet clearly twisted, desperately trying to keep his body upright. Kim says that's good, that he can hit him a little more. Kang-wook, holding his head and stunned as always, wonders if Kim is doing all that just because the food got dropped on the ground. Our nerd seems to be watching too, his face badly damaged. Kim then once again raises a finger and beckons Jongshin to come to him. Obviously, the boy stands frozen, mouth agape at the audacity. Then Kim asks where he should break the boy first, and then tells him to say it and he'll take it into consideration. Our hero gets very close to him. Looking straight into his eyes, our boy asks if he has no answer to that question. Jongshin looks to the side, toward his chubby friend. The friend, confused, calls his name. Kim says that since he won't answer, he'll choose for him. He prepares a strike and says he'll start with a fractured jaw. Once again, he can see the hit coming, he knows exactly where it'll land, and yet it's like he can't react, like trying to dodge a point-blank shot. Then he closes his eyes and screams, making Kim stop his fist just inches from his face. He falls to the ground by himself, without being hit by anyone, still screaming. The chubby friend is in shock, watching the scene. Jongshin thinks he's never seen anything like that in his life. He can't accept that such a thing exists and remembers the strange feeling he had when he first saw the boy. It's as if he weren't human, as if he were some kind of demonic being. Kim keeps staring at the guy, looking puzzled. Meanwhile, Jongshin thinks it's impossible to overcome that feeling, while also staring at Kim with his hands locked in front of his face. Extremely fast, Kim's foot hits the guy's chin. As we see the guy fall, Kim says the destruction of the jaw has been successfully completed. Our little nerd is there, watching closely. He sees Kim beating up Jongshin. Next, we see a teacup. That teacup is being held by the teacher and his wife, still in the hospital room. Then we see a view of a rainy street. After that, we return to the fight, once Kim has finished beating the guy up. Our boy gets up from on top of Jongshin. He breathes alone for a moment, enjoying the rain. The chubby guy suddenly feels watched by our hero and gets nervous, letting his umbrella fall. He starts sweating cold. Then Kim begins walking toward him with that look of his that mixes boredom and madness. Suddenly, we see the hideout of the fugitive family from the Tiger clan. In a hallway, we see several bodies thrown to the ground while some men are standing with their backs against the wall. One person is eating noodles. As we see a dirty bathroom, someone says that Pell Wong made a profitable offer, but that when he traveled the whole way there to hear the proposal, grabbing a dumpling with his chopsticks, he finishes the sentence saying that the proposal was a bit different from what he heard over the phone. The guy eats the dumpling while his face is all dirty. He goes on saying that it was at that moment he cut the guy's Achilles tendon. Someone asks if the boss was playing games behind the scenes while another says he's had enough already. Then he asks how much more he'll need. The man uses the chopstick to stab the leg of the man tied up in front of him. The bald man screams, his cries muffled only by the tape covering his mouth. As abruptly as it was inserted, the chopstick is pulled from his leg, making him scream in pain again. Using the same chopstick, he goes back to his noodles, picking up some more while saying he'll give the man 2 days to sort things out in Busan. As he stuffs in more noodles, he finishes the sentence saying he should join them afterward. The bald man nods vigorously in agreement while the other keeps staring intensely with his maniacal look and asks if he's telling the truth. Again, the bound man nods affirmatively. A few seconds pass as they stare at each other. The one who was eating then sets his bowl down on a nearby table. Then he gets up and says he'll take the man's promise seriously and tells him to keep enjoying his meal. Next, from up close, he wishes the bald man a good day. We hear his footsteps leaving the apartment while another man stands near the door. The one standing near the door is Kang Hyakyo, head of combat at Iljeong High School. He says that Chong keeps calling desperately and asks what he should do, at which point the boss extends his hand as if asking for the phone. The phone is then handed to the boss. He calls the guy while heading toward a door. A voice on the other end asks if he's Pidgechiel, leaving the boss confused. In the previous fight scene, we see that all of Jongshan's friends have been defeated and are unconscious on the ground. Meanwhile, Pidgey remains silent with the phone to his ear. He seems stunned as he listens to something on the phone. Then he opens the door and comes face to face with our boy. Kim says he finally found him. They keep staring at each other, the tension growing by the second. Pidgey breaks into a crazed smile. In a beautiful restaurant lit by the city night, meat sizzles on a gleaming grill. Someone asks the principal if they really won't do anything about that incident. He goes on saying that no matter how many incidents there were before at Iljeong, this time an outsider came in and beat up the students. If that ends up in the media or if the parents find out somehow. The principal then, annoyed, asks who's the loving and caring father who'd send their kid to that school anyway. Waving his chopsticks, he says the man still doesn't understand that school, which is made for children of single mothers or orphans. The vast majority are there because their parents gave up on them, and those who aren't are the minority, and complaining won't make any difference. As his glass is being filled with sake, he continues saying that no outsider cares about what happens in a trash school like Iljeong. The principal says there will be no problems, that it's just a matter of burying the story, and the other starts to protest, but the principal immediately cuts him off saying it won't lead to anything. He says the incident has something mixed in that they shouldn't even dare to touch. Then he mosily drinks from his small cup. He then adds that something truly filthy is involved there. Elsewhere, we see a man kicking another out of a window. The man who was kicked begins to fall from the building. While falling, he glances sideways at the ground, quickly approaching him. Now he's inches from the ground, his body curled up. He hits flat on his back against the hard, cold ground. Using the momentum, he throws himself backward, turning to face forward. Then he tries to balance himself while still being pushed back by the force of the blow and the fall. We see the serious look on his bruised face. Kim, who kicked the man, looks from the window and thinks that the man controlled the fall and still managed to stand afterward. Then our boy decides to jump from the window too. He lands gracefully in front of the man on the street. Once down there, he stares at the man with his already familiar bored eyes. The man recovers from the fall. He then wonders what that boy is that he can clearly see when the attack is going to be made. He remembers the fight still in the building where he took a kick to the chest and says he can't dodge his attacks. Relying on his combat experience, he knows that our hero is an opponent he has zero chance of beating in a direct fight. Maybe he had a chance if he could grab the boy and the advantage would be his. Quickly, he jumps at Kim, thinking he's going to crush that boy. Our boy easily dodges the man's first attempt to grab him, but the man comes with his opposite hand ready for another attack. This time it seems he's going to land the hit because the trajectory of his arm is aligned with where the boy will land. Getting closer and closer, the man thinks that this time he got him. When his hand closes on empty space, he thinks the boy is a slippery bastard. Our boy takes advantage of the dodging position to kick the opponent in the face. The kick catches him off guard and makes him stagger backward, and meanwhile Kim stands up and clenches his left fist. He lands that left fist squarely on the man's face. Our boy maintains his serious look while recalling the scenes after the fight with Jongshan. Carrying his nerdy friend on his back, he goes down a staircase. The friend softly calls his name with his head resting on his shoulder. He asks if the cut on his nose will leave a scar. Since Kim doesn't answer it, he says it doesn't matter. After a while, he says he'll see that scar every day when he looks in the mirror, and Kim decides to ask why the boy keeps asking obvious questions. Then the nerdy friend says it's unfair. As he again remembers scenes of being beaten and suffering at the hands of school bullies, he says he already has a wound. No matter how much he tries to erase it, it will still leave a scar. He then repeats the statement, saying it's really unfair. Back in the fight, we see the big guy groaning in pain as he trembles from the impact of the blows. As soon as he removes his hand from his face, our boy's knee is already there to greet it. And so it happens, Kim lands a precise knee strike to the man's chin. While falling backward, the man wonders what's wrong with that boy. He just threw him out a window and now he's targeting his nose and face. The man falls on his back to the ground, causing a big impact. He rolls until he hits a wall and ends up face down. Groaning in pain, he tries to get up again. He manages to lift his face and tells the boy not to be ridiculous, while thinking that maybe the kid isn't just beating him up, he's trying to send him to the grave. Next, we see him Kang Hyukshul, smiling with a medal around his neck and a certificate in his hands, wearing a guy in a black belt at his waist. Pijichil tells him, while they sit on a bench, that the guy is not an ordinary person. Even with so much talent not being able to reach the top, he then wonders if the world isn't really unfair. Then and obviously, Pidgey extends his hand to him and tells him to accept, because he will make the man someone special. Standing up, he thinks that he was accepted by Pidgey, who is someone special, and that there's no way he's going to keep getting beat up by that kid. The veins on his face start bulging with the amount of hatred the man is feeling. Without thinking twice, he charges at Kim again. Our boy keeps moving smoothly, dodging Kang's punch. As he misses the attack, he thinks that it would only take grabbing the boy once, then the game would be over. More attacks are launched as our boy defends himself, and Kang thinks about directing the blows at his face, then throw a fake punch upwards to deceive him. And with the other open hand, the plan is to grab Kim. Quickly, he manages to grab the sleeve of our hero's shirt. Smiling, he says it's over for the boy while thinking that in that brief fleeting moment, he was able to catch the boy off guard. The man's other hand ends up landing on the back of Kim's neck. He spins, throwing his waist into it and making our hero spin with him. His spin is fast and powerful. But then he notices that our boy isn't being lifted by his waist movement. We see that he wasn't able to lift Kim. Kim disperses weight, gaining a wider base, making it much harder to lift him. Surprised, the man thinks that executing that movement so quickly is something only a pro could do. Suddenly, our hero moves his feet differently, using the man's own weight against him. Then we see Kim lifting the man and making a counter move to bring him to the ground. And he does it perfectly, slamming the man's head hard on the ground. As the impact from the blow travels through his body, the man thinks that none of it makes any sense. Then, amidst the pain and suffering, he wonders who that guy is. He continues thinking that guy defies logic, that even gravity doesn't make sense around him anymore. Kang begins to get up, groaning in pain and thinking that none of this makes sense. His face looks destroyed, and he remains in shock, unable to believe that guy was capable of all that. Kim doesn't waste time and doesn't let the man breathe, coming in with a kick aimed at his face. We go back to a memory of the nerd being carried and telling Kim that he doesn't know how comforting it is to have him around, that he'd pay whatever he wanted. Kim asks if he would really do that. Ignoring the question, the nerd asks if he could take them seriously too. We return just in time to see the kick landing squarely on the man's face, sending him flying. Then we see Kim carrying the nerd in the rain, standing still while the boy pleads, please. Then see the man gasping heavily. Kim is on top of him, watching him lying on the ground. Kang seems unconscious. Then Kim remembers again the time he was carrying his friend on his back, and we see him again standing in the rain alone with the fallen enemy in front of him. He looks slightly over his shoulder. A siren blares loudly and a police light flashes on. Next, we see two police officers calling out to him, while one points a weapon at him. He stands still, staring at the officers. One of the guys has his phone out while we see other people lying on the ground. On his phone, we see the number 112, the police emergency number, while the officer says they got a call about a brawl going on. The weapon the officer is pointing is not lethal, it's a taser. One of the police officers tells him to raise his hands and walk toward them slowly, while the other says to do it now. Suddenly, the officer is struck violently in the face. We see PG Chiul holding a brick. It was he who hit the officer by surprise. The struck officer collapses to the ground, sprawled out. His partner looks at him, still not fully understanding what just happened. Then he turns his weapon to aim at the new target while stuttering. However, Pidgey is faster and already has the brick in hand, ready to hit the officer. We hear the sound of the brick smashing into the other man as well. Not just one strike, but several. And once again, we see beautiful city scenes to avoid unnecessary brutality. Soon after, we see Pidgey in a pose, almost like he's making a bow. He then stretches and runs his hand through his hair. Looking with his maniacal gaze at our boy, he smiles and says it's exciting. The two boys stare at each other for a few seconds. As we see the police officers' bodies on the ground, injured and unconscious, Pidgey starts saying something about violence. He ends by saying that violence is something very convenient. In a situation where you should go backward, violence allows you to move forward. It allows you to be where you need to be. And then he asks why they made something so good illegal. Pidgey says our boy knows what he's talking about, that somehow he feels the boy and he are partners. He opens his arms and starts walking toward our hero, saying they should be friends, that he can enhance and use his abilities. Then he says the power they have deserves to be rewarded. He then asks if Kim has ever heard what the Yakuza boss in Japan once said, that money justifies any violence. And violence builds empires. Saying this, he emphasizes that our hero should join him. Kim says that man got sent packing. As Pidgey begins to ask something, we see our hero's clenched fist heading toward his face. Kim pierces through Pidgey with the force of his punch, ending up behind him. Then we see the picture of the Yakuza leader cut, and next we see Kim saying he sent that man to talk to God personally. We then return to the director's dinner as the man with him asks what he meant when he mentioned something filthy was involved in that incident. The director, with a worried expression, says that whoever went there was different. Then we see a desk nameplate with a name written on it. The director then pours a drink for the congressman, telling him to have another. Sometime later, looking at his computer, he sees an important message appear, saying there will be a gang attack at the school, that he should do nothing, and that the message was a threat. Back to the present, the director says it seems to be a threat at the level of national treasure, that stealing elite corporate data was a national security crime. Then in the fight between Pidgey and Kim, we see the enemy manage to block the punch that was headed for his face. Behind the block, the boy displayed a big smile. Looking back, he says, "So that's it, they won't be friends." Our boy looks back too, without saying anything. Kim tells him to stop asking that he's making it a hard choice for him. We see a building at night lit by moonlight. Someone is standing in front of a crib where a baby sleeps while saying that not all killers are evil, that eventually we'll all be sent packing. In the corner of the room, there's a wooden rocking horse and a bookshelf full of carefully arranged books. On the television, a voice claims that the only difference was he gave them a new time to meet God. That striking phrase was said by none other than the infamous and feared killer, Albert Bundy. Albert Bundy became known worldwide as a serial killer who sent nearly 30 women to their eternal rest. Meanwhile, the baby's shrill cry echoes through the room, accompanied by sudden and desperate movements. A baby bottle slips off the table and falls to the ground, stopping right at the feet of a frightened woman. The woman in panic screams the name Pidgey Chill upon seeing him with a boiling kettle over the crib. Not understanding the reason for the scream, he stares at the woman while we reflect on what it must be like to rule over life and death. As cruel as he was, Albert Bundy did not escape the consequences and ended up paying dearly for his terrible crimes. The next scene takes us to a police station where someone asks if another person was crying there. We see a man asking Pidgey if he tried to send his little brother packing, and he says yes, that he asked several times for him to stop crying. But his brother Jiho didn't seem to hear him and kept crying. As we see the baby covered in bandages and dressings, we hear Pidgey saying that the baby made the first mistake. The officer says Pidgey will be punished under Juvenile Punishment Code number 10. Pidgey's case was quite similar to Albert Bundy's, but not everyone has to pay for the bad things they do. In a juvenile detention center, we see several boys passed out on the ground while Pidgey watches a news report on TV about Sakatsuki Bushino being suspected of committing some atrocities. On that 11th day, he was declared innocent, and Mr. Jung Seokyeon, son of Congressman John Tawan, ran over an 11-year-old girl while driving drunk, but the news here was that he wasn't the one driving the car. It was at that moment he realized what his calling in life was, which was to make money, have fame, and gain power. He began right there at that moment to think that if he had those three things, he could have everything and finally become a special human being. To be the one who determines the time people get sent packing. Basically, to be God. Sometime later, we see Pidgey standing in front of a child at a school. With a somewhat kind smile, he asks the child if he wants to know the real reason he tried to send the boy to heaven. The boy looks at him with a confused expression as we see that half of the young man's face is scared from a burn. Then he says that the boy, Jigu, is very similar to him. Next, he says that only one of them is enough for that world, there's no need for two. And then he asks if he understands that. A few minutes later, we see that he sent the little boy to heaven while beginning his path to becoming God. In the rain with his shirt open, facing Kim, he says he is a special being. Kim showed the same boredom as always, distracted while lazily cleaning his ear with his pinky finger. In the next moment, he tries to land a kick on Pidgey, who skillfully dodges by throwing his body backward in a quick evasive move. Kim delivers a second attack, but this time Pidgey manages to block the blow with firmness and precision. Pidgey comments that what Kim just did is exactly what he doesn't quite understand. He tries to ask a question, but we notice a visible wound on his head, still bleeding slightly. With the injury becoming more evident, he wants to know how Kim can predict his movements so easily. Mocking the way Pidgey talks, Kim asks if he hit his head and adds that he's just faster. He finishes by saying it's no problem, as he was just playing around a bit to warm up and have fun. Kim reveals that it had been a while since he encountered someone with skills like that and asks if Pidgey is really just an ordinary person. Pidgey replies saying he has already surpassed many other opponents with ease, being better than most of them. He recalls holding a piece of wood surrounded by fallen bodies all around him, all completely defeated. He also remembers choking a bald fighter inside a boxing ring in a brutal match. Another memory surfaces, him leaving behind a room covered in bodies, with red footprints marking the path. Back to the present, he concludes the sentence saying that this was the first time something like that had ever happened. Kim replies saying that if he starts talking weird stuff, he better just shut up already. Suddenly, Pidgey jumps at high speed toward our hero, saying that he really is very interesting. The strike seems to hit the boy's face squarely with unexpected strength and precision, but Pidgey's eyes stay fixed on the spot where he thought he landed the previous blow. Quickly, he looks down and realizes that Kim wasn't there, but at another point on the field. Kim comments that the guy saw just one move and already copied it, calling him a bastard with no creativity. Surprising Pidgey, Kim throws a powerful uppercut, hitting him with great force. Pidgey's face is thrown back by the brutal impact as Kim watches him closely, evaluating his movements. Once again, Pidgey's eyes move quickly downward, and he says that Kim really is very interesting. Trying to retaliate, he throws a punch from above, but Kim manages to dodge in time with agility. Our hero pauses briefly, analyzing the enemy in front of him with attention and caution. Then he is surprised by a punch coming from the right, directed straight at his face with speed. Luckily, he manages to duck just in time, causing the attack to miss completely. The enemy launches a barrage of attacks in succession, forcing our warrior to move back while defending himself as best he can. In an opening, our hero manages to strike back and lands a punch on the left side of Pidgey's face. As our boy's fist connects with the enemy's face, he smiles. On the left side, we see the enemy's head turn after taking a punch from Kim, who is on the right and delivered the powerful blow. Then our hero wonders if he dodged the punch by letting his fist slide across his face, while the other gives a little chuckle. He then uses his knee to counterattack, making our boy retreat once more. Kim realizes that the longer this fight drags on, the enemy's power, determination, and skills will continue to grow. Then once again, Pidgey comes with a powerful punch aimed at our hero, who is forced to retreat and defend himself. Our boy thinks that, especially, the enemy's speed is getting faster and faster, that it seems to be a natural talent of his. Pidgey jumps and goes for a spinning kick, trying to hit our hero. Then he thinks who would have thought he'd meet someone like him at a high school in Korea. The enemy smiles with each strike, seeming to enjoy the fight more and more, and decides to go on the offensive again after our hero once again evades his attacks. He notices that the boy's speed increased again. That kid was anything but ordinary. Pidgey charges forward, trying to land a quick blow directly to Kim's face with impulsive and impatient movements. Our hero continues to observe the enemy calmly, thinking he just throws random attacks with haste and low strategy. He realizes that the strikes are always the same, with a repetitive sequence that invariably starts with 3 kicks using the left leg. However, the real attack is always hidden in the right fist, where he seems to concentrate all his true strength. Bored, Kim just thinks about how predictable and shallow the opponent's combos are without any tactical depth. Pidgey asks if he really doesn't find all of that interesting, considering the level of power Kim seems to have. Kim, surprised, questions whether that last strike really came from the left hand and not the right as he expected. The punch hits Kim's face squarely, seemingly causing considerable impact, even though he tries to resist. The enemy, confident, declares that nothing will be able to stop him and that his destiny is to surpass everyone. Smiling arrogantly, he claims he was born to be superior and that no one can change his grand future. Kim responds by saying he'll find out just how far this boy can really go with all that overconfidence. We see him grab the enemy's left fist with his right hand as he says that hearing him say those things is embarrassing and asks why he acts that way. The enemy hadn't realized until now that he managed to block the attack and has just become aware of it. Then Kim asks him if he thinks he can do anything. He then says that he really isn't ordinary, but that his level is more for household use. Kim tells the boy to keep coming, promising to show him what the true level of his strength and skill is. Means begin to pulse visibly in Pidgey's fists, signaling a sudden surge of energy or tension. Faceless keeps his neutral expression, but also reveals bulging veins as he tries to understand what Kim meant by keep coming. Something happens suddenly, and a strike is delivered by our hero with such speed it can barely be seen. The other boy notices something strange in his left eye, as if he had been hit by something invisible. He realizes he suddenly lost vision in that eye, even though he didn't see any movement from his opponent. As he tries to understand what's happening, he begins to feel something strange spreading across his face. Kim coldly orders him to shut up, stating with disdain that he is absolutely nothing. The sensation is like being enveloped in darkness, as if he were in the palm of a superior being's hand. Pidgey feels the grip tightening around him, as if an invisible rope were slowly tightening around his neck. And the pressure is so great it feels like his enemy's fist is about to crush him completely. 2 people are walking in front of a place, and one of them asks if that's the workplace of Chief Park, and the other answers yes. We see a bald man tied up and gagged unconscious, while one of the men says that Pidgey Cheol had already been there. The man named Yu Jangsyuk says he hasn't been able to contact him since that morning. As we see some toy vending machines, one of the men says that if you get involved with Pidgey, things can end up getting filthy. Walking a bit further, they see the 2 unconscious police officers on the street while they continue their conversation. The police car was completely shut off, including the light bar. They finally arrive at the scene of the confrontation between Kim and Pidgey, spotting our hero from behind with the other lying on the ground in front of him. The boy shows a surprised expression upon witnessing the scene, clearly shaken by what he sees. Right after, we see the body of Pidgey Cheol with limbs twisted in a bizarre and completely unnatural way. Still shocked, the young man asks out loud if that disfigured body is really Pidgey Cheol's. Kim begins to slowly turn his body, curious to see who had just arrived at the scene of the fight. We are still in a rainy night in front of a building. Inside that building, a hallway full of unconscious bodies is shown to us. The boy in the yellow jacket, standing and looking at the bald man gagged and tied to the chair, says that this is one of Park's men. Remembering Pidgey Cheol's body, he judges that given the extent of the damage, the boy might suffer permanent injuries. Then he looks back where another man is lying down and asks who the man is that did that. Then the boss asks if he meant the man who turned Pidgey Cheol into that pile of misshapen meat. The other one says he kept wondering if it was fair to send the boy away like that. The man lying on the bed, the leader, stays silent for a few seconds. Then he says there's no reason to run. We return to the local police headquarters. We see the badge of a man named Park Chung-sik, while someone says his phone was hacked. The man is holding the device, saying there was a strange icon that wasn't there before and wonders who would dare mess with a cop's phone. In his messages, someone says they hope the crimes committed by the students of Iljin High School over the years finally start to be properly investigated. The person also says they organize a list of bribes he received, as well as photos and camera footage of him in situations he shouldn't be in. Then the messages end by telling him to truly investigate the students there and make it clear that this is a threat. He clenches his fist, upset about the threat, while wondering who that person is. We return to the scene of the man lying on the bed as he lights a cigarette and says the boy is the real deal, that if he keeps walking around there like that, they'll eventually end up meeting. Mina is saying the king is coming while throwing flyers into the air. One of the nerdy kids asks why she's doing that while she says it's her husband's day. Two of the boys are carrying Kim, telling everyone to make way for the king of the south. We see that the flyer says Kim Doyle, Lightning Fist, rules the southwest, and that anyone who does something bad will be hunted by him. The nerdy kids carry him while others make way, and Mina keeps spreading flyers and throwing them into the air. Two people are sitting on a bench in front talking while eating. They comment that there's no place left for them in Sumun. The girl starts complaining to one of the nerds, asking why on earth they still use flyers, and he complains that he doesn't post online because no one follows them. Another boy sits on the bench near the other two, complaining that his position was taken, and the other two sympathize with him. Kim suddenly lets out a yell and raises his fingers. Donggu is walking with Kim on the street and says he left the payment for his performance in the locker earlier, and the other says he saw it. He then thanks him and says that since he transferred to that school, they can have happy days. Then thoughtful, he says he can't even believe it's real, while Kim says he's only doing it for the money and to shut up with that talk. Next, he says who would have thought he'd take down Pidgey Cheol in Iljin High School, and even comments that it was a series of absurd events. Then we see that Kim took a picture of Pidgey Cheol and sent it to Donggu, informing him that he defeated him and to prepare his payment for Monday. Happy, the friend asks if it's not photoshopped, and he says it really would have been much easier to edit a photo like that than actually do it. Donggu looks down thoughtfully, maybe for the first time truly happy since the beginning. He then continues saying that it won't be a burden for him. After all, he also needs to be fully prepared. Next, he adds that he wants to learn how to fight. Kim, who is eating, looks at him with a puzzled expression. A guy named Wei Sikian, 5th in the rankings at Sukdong High School, asks someone if Pidgey Cheol was defeated. He goes on to say that if that's true, they have to celebrate because now it's their turn. Then he asks if that boy who keeps joking about going after the 12 nations is 1 or 2 people. Pidgey Cheol isn't someone who can be taken down that easily, and he turns to Dongyuk and asks if he thinks the same. The boy is in the middle of a circle with several circles drawn on his body, and when he is called, it's like he wakes up from a dream. Then we see the ball that the other boy was holding being thrown at his stomach. The boy doubles over in pain. The man stands up and says he told him not to ask questions and to only answer what is asked of him. Next, he asks what the boy is doing and orders him to bring the ball back to him. The boy then stands up and says yes. He runs to where the ball was and picks it up while the others laugh. After handing the ball to the other boy, he is told to return to his place. We see that what is written in the circle where the boy has to sit, that it's a place reserved for the unintelligent. While he was walking to the place, the others behind his back were making jokes, saying how pathetic he was and things like that. The man says that the only people he can blame are the parents for giving birth to a loser, and then asks if the boy agrees. The boy arrives at the place he was told to go and stays silent for a while, not responding. Then the bully asks if his parents gave birth to a messed up kid like him and asks if he's right. But the boy remains silent. The bully then speaks louder and in a threatening tone, asking if he doesn't agree with that. Once again, the boy stays quiet. The bully starts getting angry and asks if he's going to start with that silent act again. Then he grabs the ball and throws it hard at the boy. The ball is going to hit the boy square in the face, but at the last second, he ducks, making the ball fly over him. Someone else ends up catching the ball. Donggu says that surprised him while Kim is holding the ball. The boy looks back to see who just showed up. Our hero has that usual bored face of someone who's about to beat everyone up. Near someone's foot, there's something red. The bully asks who he is and notices he's from Sumun High School because of the uniform. Suddenly, his mouth is hit hard by the ball. The impact is so strong that his teeth break and the girl next to him screams in surprise. She turns to Kim and calls him a lunatic. Kim hands his food tray to the nerdy kid, who asks if Kim is telling him to hold that for him. The girl then realizes Kim is extremely handsome. The other bullies start wondering what's wrong with that crazy handsome guy. One of them asks if the Sumun High School crowd has gone nuts if he hasn't seen the uniform they're wearing. Then he asks if they don't know who they are while our hero puts his hand in his coat pocket. A gun is pulled out and pointed at the head of the boy, who doesn't understand what's happening for a moment. Then a point-blank shot is fired at the boy's face. Next, we see the rubber bullet rolling across the floor. The boy who was being bullied is left speechless at what just happened. Another bully looks at his friend with a huge lump forming on his forehead, wondering what the hell just happened. He starts backing away, stammering. Then he charges our hero, asking how he has a gun in Korea. Our boy lets him pass and uses his own momentum to throw him to the ground. As the boy falls, our hero brushes his hand across his neck. Then we see him holding the boy by the neck as he walks toward the others, and the boy begins to suffocate slowly. Kim turns toward a wall and smashes the boy's face against it. Right after, he points his gun at the boy's back, who at this point already has his face wrecked. He shoots 3 times at the boy's backside. The boy starts screaming and cursing wildly in pain. Then he says he can't breathe, that the Sumun High School kid is crazy. Kim follows up with another point-blank shot to his head. The other 2 bullies ask again who he is, bringing a gun into Korea, and the other tells him to drop that thing. Kim says no while blowing on the barrel of the gun and tells them to all come at him at once because they're annoying him. We see beautiful, joyful scenes as our boy beats up the guys as usual. The girl is completely in shock watching the scenes while the first one, who got hit in the face with the ball, gets up asking who the hell that boy was. He yells and asks where that kid came from out of nowhere and why he's doing this. Then he asks if the boy is an assassin sent by Iljeon High School, while one of the others asks him to wait while he takes a shot at him. The bully yells that Busikchin told him to get Pidgey Cheel. Kim calmly asks who that is. The bully stammers with his mouth full of gaps after having several teeth broken from the ball hit. Then he decides that words won't help and charges at Kim, cursing him. Our hero stays calm and tells him to look down, and clearly, the boy looked. It was the perfect moment for our boy to point the gun at his face and say he got tricked. The shot is fired and we see a giant bump form instantly. In the meantime, the boy who was being bullied remains standing, not understanding anything that was happening there. Some time ago, our hero had told a happy and smiling Donggu that their next step would be Sukdong School. Kim keeps pointing the gun at the boy's face, who desperately begs him to stop and asks why he's doing that. Without any emotion, Kim replies that he's doing it for pork. Then he fires another shot at the boy's face. We see a beautiful morning in a children's playground. Kim has his marvelous bored look, and someone comments that the weather has warmed up a bit. Then the former Iljeong School student Park Jinju asks if Kim isn't hot, while pointing a portable fan at him. Our hero tells him to stop calling him Kyungmin all the time. He's already 20 years old and doesn't need that. He then asks our boy how he ended up transferring to that school. Still pointing the little fan at our hero, he says that's where he is now after all. Then he remembers kneeling and asking for permission, saying he has to be wherever the other is. Kim tells him again to stop calling him that, and the other says age means nothing, that there's no pressure involved. Then he says a strong person becomes a hyundam, that it's just something natural. A man's instinct is to head toward Mount Tae. Then he says he used to think that the mountain he saw at Iljeong School, Pidgeotto, was the tallest of all. But through Hyungnam, he was able to understand that there's a mountain absurdly taller than that one. Then he sees himself in a snowy valley surrounded by huge mountains. And then we see Kim scratching his ear with one finger and using his phone with the other hand. Right after, our hero wonders why that guy hasn't been caught. Then we see Jongbyum and Jongchen arrested. Suddenly, we see messages on the corrupt cop's phone asking him if he really investigated and why Park Jinju isn't in custody too. The cop says that guy was released with just a warning, that no matter how much they dug, they couldn't find any dirt on him. The guy had no involvement in the management or the incidents at Iljeong School. He just seemed like a gym fanatic kid. Then he stands up and bows, once again asking for Hyungnam to accept him and promises to treat him as his older brother for the rest of his life. Kim says fine to do whatever he wants, while Mina is arriving. The girl strikes a sexy pose and says it suddenly got really hot around there, so he can see how sweaty she got out of nowhere. Our hero says he was already thinking it was weird that she hadn't shown up until now. Mina asks who wants to wipe her sweat, while the other guy raises his hand asking if it's to wipe with hands or something else. The girl hits the guy and tells him to get out of there, that she wasn't talking to him. Kim, clearly devastated from boredom, wonders if it wouldn't be better to wipe them all out and leave Korea. Donggu, who had been in horse stance this whole time, calls our hero's attention asking if he checked the timer correctly and if the time hasn't already passed. The nerdy kid says he looks like a liar and then asks what any of that has to do with fighting. Then he remembers Kim saying he'd have to work out for 2 months and only train his lower body. While Mina beats up the other guy, the nerd says that he still hasn't taught him any techniques. He finally questions again if that will really make him good at fighting. On Kim's phone stopwatch, we see that the boy has already been in that position for 14 minutes. Kim tells him to shut up and that if he wants to break, then just break. Then, in the bathroom, someone talks from the stall next to the nerdy kids, saying it's going to cost 6 million. He says that if the next step is to eliminate the Sipdong School crowd, then the performance bonus will be 6 million. Donggu asks if it shouldn't just be 1 million and then asks if they can talk about that later because he can't concentrate. Then Kim says it's not his fault the other guy's stomach chooses such times to work and says he'll repeat it again. Sukdong High School will be much harder to defeat than Iljeong, while our nerd asks if he researched that beforehand. Our hero asks if there isn't a rule that the enemy who appears afterward is always stronger than the previous one. He says that if you want to mess with someone like him standing in the way, it'll make things much harder. Then he continues saying he promised to train him almost to death over these 2 months. Next, he asks the boy to prove it to him. Then he provokes him, saying to prove to him that he trained and he's not an obstacle. Kim says the name Park Kangwook. He goes on to say that the Juba twins transferred schools and that the strongest guy at Sumun High now is Park Kangwook. Our hero says that today he will provoke the boy and become the boss of Sumun High School. The nerdy kid asks if he isn't already the boss of Sumun, to which our hero replies no, that he's world-class on another level. He imagines being called the boss of Sumun High. Kim says that if he manages that, within a week they can wipe out Sukdong. Then we see two people talking, and one of them says that Medunbu challenged Park Kang-wook to a duel. Rumor has it he's hanging around with a transfer student and people are wondering if he finally learned something. The other student says that's crazy and asks where they are, and the other replies they must be in the auditorium right now. Then the two of them run off and remember to grab popcorn. Meanwhile, in the middle of the basketball court, several students are gathered around Park Kang-wook and Donggu, who are at the center. It looks like our nerdy kid is in a fighting stance ready. Kang-wook runs his hand through his hair and thinks those bastards are messing with him again without him having done anything at all. A boy with glasses wonders if Donggu is really going to fight Kang-wook. We see someone holding the flyer that was handed out with Kim's photo on it. A buff man asks if that's the one who defeated Piji Cheol, and another walking behind says that's what eyewitnesses said, but it's probably just a rumor. The man has a giant scar running across his face and smiles while looking at the flyer. Then he says the kid who beat up Piji Cheol is for real. He says he doesn't know how he ended up like that. And he ended up retiring, plus it's highly possible that the federal nation was involved in the case. Throwing the flyer into the air, he wonders how some stupid kids from Sumun High managed to defeat a guy like Piji Cheol. Still with a maniacal look, he says there are rats who betray the name of the 12 nations anywhere. He walks past a door and kicks its electronic lock as if it were nothing. Then we see it fall to the floor, bouncing. The man with the scarred face starts to open the door, having kicked the doorknob far away, while saying it doesn't matter, it's in the southwest of Seoul. Entering the room, he sees several guys armed with melee weapons ready to fight, while he continues his sentence saying it doesn't matter, it's in the northeast of Seoul. He asks someone in the room named Park Sang-sik if what he just said isn't true and calls him a rat, while smiling and staring down the armed guys. He finishes by asking if he dares do business betraying their boss's name. One of the men in the back, holding a baseball bat and with red hair, looks angry and is sweating. He yells, asking what the others are doing, not attacking the enemy. Then everyone else decides to charge at the scarred strongman. The first, who had a knife in hand, takes a punch without even seeing where it came from. He already falls to the ground as his friend with a baseball bat charges next. The strongman spins his body and grabs the guy by the head as he falls. Taking advantage of the motion, he grabs the guy's head and slams a strong knee into his face. In a corner of that room, we see a slipper starting to get dirty from the battle going on. Two other men, one holding a hammer and the other unarmed, are nervous at the thought of facing the scarred strongman. That same strongman is smiling and looking at them while the guy who took the knee falls to the ground in front of him. Staying the scene from above, we notice there are only two enemies left and the red-haired guy in the back. The strongman charges forward to finish them off quickly. He strikes the two in front of him very fast, making the hammer fly. And a second later, he's already face-to-face with the redhead. Taking advantage of the flying hammer, the scar-faced man catches it in midair, and it looks like he's going to use it on the red-haired guy. The boy is trembling all over while holding the baseball bat. Desperate, he charges at the strongman, telling him to go to hell. But obviously, the strongman hits him in the face with the hammer. The blow is so powerful that the boy's body spins on its own axis in the air. Then we hear the impact of his little body hitting the ground while we see a shelf with random items. Then we go back to cool scenery while the beating continues, in this case, a nice water fountain. We'd also see that there are framed pictures on the wall, one of them displaying medals. Then we see one of the guy's feet, all dirty, twitching on its own. The hammer in the strongman's hand is also very dirty as he asks if it's worth living by selling out other people's names. Then the camera pulls back and we see that everyone else is on the ground while the strongman stands still with the hammer in hand. The flyer with our hero Kim's face is still there on the floor. The strongman named Jang Chunsil, ranked second at Sukdong High, looks down at the flyer and says he's going to crush our boy. Right after, we're taken to the auditorium of Sumun High School. Some students are slack-jawed watching the fight unfold in front of them. Maina and her friend are also watching, with the friend putting her hand to her mouth. Dong's friends are also watching in shock. Our boy Kim is sitting with his arms crossed, calmly observing. Then we see a bruised fist. Next, we see Kang-wook panting heavily and cursing, saying they're messing around. Our nerdy boy, Donggu, is face down on the floor, passed out. Obviously, the nerd wouldn't give up that easily and starts getting up. The people around are shocked that he can still stand. Park Kang-wook remembers landing a solid combo on the boy, starting with a punch right to his face. That punch is followed by another to his stomach, and then another one to the face. Now seeing Donggu standing up again, he wonders how the boy is still getting up after taking that kind of beating. Angrily, he curses the nerd. Donggu wipes his face with his fist and tries to steady himself without saying a word to him. Kang-wook clenches his teeth and starts stammering with rage. Then he charges at the nerd, screaming in fury that he should have stayed down. He lands a direct hit on Donggu's face, who begins to fall backward from the force of the blow. But he manages to use his foot to stop himself from falling. Then we see that he also has his teeth clenched in anger, but his eye is open and focused. He tries to punch Kang-wook, who laughs while dodging and says the boy's punch is way too slow. While meeting him, he asks what the boy can even do if he keeps getting up and messing things up. Our nerdy boy loses his breath from the knee strike. Suddenly, the enemy's foot comes quickly toward his face. The strike lands and we see our boy spinning. Another nerdy kid, a friend of Donggu, watches the beating he's taking. He falls to the ground, being dragged by the force of the kick he took while all the other students silently watch from around. The nerdy friend remembers asking him if he was really learning how to fight from Kim, and he confirms, saying yes. Donggu says he doesn't know if he can learn, but he's doing his best. After all, he can't depend on Kim forever. The friend then asks why it's not okay to depend on someone else. Seeing that our nerd didn't understand, the friend explains that back then, everyone had their own roles. That Doyle was born as Doyle, and they were born as who they were, meaning strong people and weak people. Even after taking a kick like that, our nerd gets up again. People around say he's crazy, that he shouldn't get up, and wonder if he hasn't broken anything by now. Other people wonder if he's really the same Donggu they knew and why he keeps getting up. Our boy, all beaten up, raises his guard again. Park Kang-wook is left speechless. He wonders in his head what's going on. This boy can't even control his own body properly. So why the hell does he keep staring back at him like he's the superior one? He clenches his fists and thinks it's the same thing that used to happen before. Then he remembers when he was getting beat up in the street that he had the same look toward Jongjin, a look of someone clearly going insane. Kang-wook comes to the conclusion that our nerd thinks he can solve everything just by acting tough, and decides to let him be as tough as he wants. The boy in front of him isn't strong, so charging at him, he mentally affirms that this time he'll knock him out, that he won't let him get up again. He lands another punch on our boy's face. Our boy's already ruined face jolts backward, but as he swings back, he tries to hit the enemy with a left punch. The other dodges. Seeing the opening he left by trying that move, he already prepares the next one, and then lands a kick on our nerd's chin. The friends, watching, scream his name. Donggu falls on his back from the force of the kick. Meanwhile, Kim watches everything calmly while sitting down. We hear more kicking sounds while we see another part of the school auditorium. Then we return to the center of the fight, with Kang-wook stomping on our boy, who's curled up on the ground while students watch around them. He kicks the boy mercilessly. Kang-wook yells at him to stop trying to climb that social ladder, to stay on the ground where he belongs. Kicking with more and more anger, he repeats that the boy should never try that again. Seeing the growing ferocity of the blows, his friends get worried. Kang-wook gets tired and breathes heavily after kicking our nerd, and stands on top of his limp body. But of course, our Donggu starts moving. Stammering and trying to breathe, Kang-wook is stunned by what he's seeing. He curses and says the boy is a bastard who doesn't know his place. Then he turns his back and starts walking away, still catching his breath. As he nears the crowd of students, he pushes people aside, calling them out for a fight. Our nerd's friend was still wide-eyed in shock at everything he saw. Again, he returns to the thought that Doyle was born as Doyle, and they were born as themselves. The friend agrees, saying they really are very different. He says he knows he'll never be like Doyle, but Donggu doesn't care. Suddenly, our nerd yells at Kang-wook, asking where he thinks he's going. Everyone in the hall seems to hold their breath, including Kang-wook. Even Mina's friend finally removes the hair roller from her head in shock. As the enemy turns around, our nerd says he already told him not to run, that this isn't over yet. Now the expression has changed. Kang-wook is scared. Sweating like crazy, he clenches his teeth while mentally cursing our boy. Wondering if he's a zombie, he charges at him again. He prepares a punch while mentally shouting again for the boy to go down already. Once again, the punch lands squarely on our nerd's already broken face. We see his head being thrown back again. But this time, something different happens. We also see a smile starting to appear. The other boy notices it too and wonders if the nerd is actually smiling and if he's completely lost it this time. Our boy tries to strike back, but the enemy manages to dodge. Their eyes meet for a second. We go back to the scene where Donggu asks Kim how he could defeat Kang-wook. Then Kim corrects him, saying it's not how to defeat him, it's definitely defeat him. Seeing the confused face of the nerd, he adds that he definitely will defeat the other guy. We return to the fight with the boy taking a punch to the stomach. His legs are shaking all over. They're very close to each other while Kang-wook wonders what kind of look that is on the boy's face. Then he wonders if that's the look of someone who's about to take a beating. We go back to the memory of Kim explaining that he needs 3 minutes, that on average, fights are always based on weight and physical strength, but willpower is everything. Analyzing it better, there isn't much weight difference between the two, so the fight will be decided by physical strength and willpower. Then he says our boy trained hard in both aspects, but Kang-wook didn't train at all. That if the boy can last exactly 3 minutes, the enemy won't be able to dodge his blows, and we see next that it's true. Then our nerd lands a punch right in the middle of the guy's face. His leg suddenly starts to give out. He notices it, wondering what's wrong with his leg. Kim explains to our nerd that the guy will feel provoked and will definitely waste his energy for nothing. Then we see our nerd landing a knee right in the center of the guy's face. The enemy's face is a mix of pain and surprise from taking that hit. On the ground, getting up, his expression is pure terror. Kim continued explaining that at that point, even breathing would be hard for Kang-wook, and from then on, he would be nothing but a punching bag. Our nerd prepares a powerful punch and lands it squarely on his chin. The crowd, whose jaws had already dropped, are even more shocked now. He remembers Kim saying that everything he has trained and everything he has been through will be used to destroy the enemy. Out of nowhere, Kang-wook decides to retaliate and lands a punch right on our nerd's ear. We go back to the memories sitting on the bench, with Kim explaining that the secret to winning that fight is having physical strength amplified by willpower. Back in the fight, the guy now tries to respond with a kick, but our nerd is faster and lands another punch on his chin. In the next moment, he gets hit by another punch from the guy, but he also lands one more. At one point, they hit each other at the same time. He remembers Kim saying that if at any moment he thinks about giving up on everything, whether it's a win or a loss, that he should scream out loud. Then back in the fight, that moment comes and Dongwoo screams very loudly. Several memories flash through his mind of getting beat up by Kangwook, and that gives him the strength to land a very strong punch on the guy. He remembers being used as a chair so the guy could throw his phone. Also remembers being forced to eat worms, and having his face beaten and smashed multiple times. This time, he's the one doing that to the bully. His expression is pure willpower. He pivots his foot to generate more strength for his punches. Screaming wildly, he prepares his strike. His friend recalls the continuation of the conversation where Dongwoo said it's okay not to be like Doyle. That for him being himself is already enough. Mina, her friend, his friends, and even Kim are all watching attentively at the twist this fight is taking. And he lands the punch he prepared with all his strength right on Kangwook's face. All of it while screaming frenetically, pouring out all his rage and willpower. After that, some moments pass as we see beautiful scenes around the school and the auditorium. Then we see the enemy face down on the floor, motionless. Our nerd remains standing, apparently struggling. The crowd keeps watching, their mouths dry from being open for so long. The nerd's friends run up to him, then hug him and celebrate like kids. The nerdy friend smiles with tears in his eyes from so much happiness. He is lifted up by the others while people spread the news of his victory. Our nerd is finally called the boss of Sumun High School. An entire city is covered in snow on its rooftops. Inside one of the houses, someone is typing on a computer. A woman tells the captain that all the information provided was sent to KOX, which was a secret messaging program used by the Blackheads. The woman continues typing on her computer, sitting with her knees up on the chair. While we see what looks like a pool hall, someone asks how long the captain of that kid. Suddenly, we're brought back to Kim, thanking someone on the phone while Dongwoo notices that he's wearing wireless earbuds. He asks where Kim got those earbuds and who he's talking to. Then he notices that he doesn't know where they're going and asks Kim. Our hero says he's asking too many questions one after another, and Dongwoo seems to struggle with choosing which one he wants answered first. He decides to go with the question about where they're going, and Kim says he promised him to wipe out Sukdong High within a week. Our hero puts his hand on a glass door and opens it. Inside that place, a man with a cigarette in his hand tells another to open his mouth wider and stick his tongue out. The man with the cigarette seems to notice our hero open the door. Not recognizing him, the guy asks who he is. Then we see what looks like a pool hall with 7 people inside. One of the men is holding another's mouth open while holding a lit cigarette. Our hero tells the nerd that he has to keep his promises. Sometime later, we see a person sprawled over one of the pool tables, clearly wrecked after taking a beating. There's another person lying on the ground near a dirty pool wall. The man who had the cigarette earlier is wondering who our hero is, trembling all over as we see Kim standing in front of him with a billiard ball in hand. This man is John Jong-soo, ranked 4th at Sukdong High School, who wonders how Sumun High has someone like him. We see the scene of Kim throwing 3 billiard balls and hitting 3 men on the head as he wonders what's wrong with his fighting style. John Jong-soo is trying to protect his face, scared, while Kim drops the billiard ball he was holding. Then he asks the man if he wants to live or if he wants to go have a talk with God. The other guy, sweating bullets, wonders why such a question came out of nowhere. Our hero says that if he wants to live, he better open his ears and listen because he has exactly 2 things to ask. He looks seriously at the man and starts listing the questions he wants to ask. Then he asks if the business he's running that targets young people is the betting site. Kim tells him to reveal all the relevant evidence and people involved in that business model. The man catches the phone our boy threw at him. While our hero tells him to write everything in the recently installed app, the man wonders how the boy knows about their website. As we see one of the windows of the pool club, our boy starts listing the second item. He says for the guy to speak to his boss, Wang Kwakui. The message is that his boss should come find him at Sumun High and meal. Then he points to Dongwoo and says that he has to kneel before his boss. While our nerd gulps nervously, Kim adds that if he doesn't want to fight, that's what he has to do. The man wonders how strong that boy with glasses must be if his subordinate is a monster like this. Dongwoo taps Kim on the shoulder and tells him to wait, calling him to the side for a quick private talk. Then he asks if that's really a good strategy, and our hero says he'll definitely show up at the school. He starts to panic and asks how Kim knows so much about Wang Kwaki, and if he's gone crazy. Calmly, Kim says there's going to be a gang fight anyway. Our nerd, panicking, starts stammering and asks what he's talking about, saying that these days there are no more gang fights. The boy explains that he defeated Jongbyum, then Hyeching showed up, then came Jongshin, and finally Pidgey Cheel. Having to defeat all of them in a row is annoying, and Kim says that with Sukdong, he'll destroy everything at once. The nerd continues panicking and asks if he knows how many people are at Sukdong, then says they'll all be dragged into this easily. Then our hero says that's something he doesn't need to worry about. He steps back in front of the man. Then he tells him to bring Wang Kwakui him. A few seconds of silence pass as we see a beautiful pool table. The man chuckles and asks if he's serious, but our hero doesn't like that and asks why he's laughing and if he wants to go talk to God right there. He says it's the first time he's seen someone ask to meet him. Usually people ask for the opposite. Meanwhile, in Junction, a man has his fists clenched. This man has a terrified expression, sweating cold, wondering if that person is really human. Another man is screaming in pain as he thinks those movements can't be human. Then we see 3 people being quickly taken down by another guy. While watching more people being taken out rapidly, he thinks to himself that the rumors are true, that he really was a ghost. He thinks the man's speed is absurd and that he needs to try to escape. But while he was thinking and watching, something happened. Then we see that the ghost passed by him with a knife in hand and he didn't even notice. This man has a giant scar on his forehead and a macabre smile on his face. We return to the scene with Kim as the man asks if he really wants to see his boss. In the warehouse where the ghost was, we see a guy holding his twisted hand while screaming. 2 other men yell as they charge forward, and we see that in fact there are 6 men rushing at the ghost who is holding a knife in each hand. And smile maniacally. He moved quickly from one fighter to the next, showing no sign of effort. We see the man with 2 knives in his hands stained. His gaze was cold and smiling, and the man tells Kim that the boss is on a business trip. Next, we see what his business trip actually is while the ghost charges at more fighters. More blows are dealt, the knife whistles through the air a few more times, and as always, he kept smiling. His murderous gaze smiled too. He notices something behind him and throws his knife while the man tells our hero that when he returns to Seoul. The ghost asks what that is, and looking back, we see a giant fist coming his way. The punch lands squarely on the ghost's face. He flies with the force and skill of the punch that was thrown. The ghost hits the ground heavily on his back, and we see that some of his teeth were forcefully knocked out by the punch. On the ground nearby, we see 5 teeth. Rain starts to fall on the ghost's unconscious body. The man keeps saying to our boy that he will report to him immediately once he arrives. The boss, the guy who knocked the ghost out with a single punch, is named Wang Kwakui. Then we are taken to a prison on a rainy day. Inside the prison, we see some closed doors and the lights on. In one of those cells, we see a man with long hair we already know, sitting in a wheelchair. Someone tells him there's going to be a meeting. After some time with no response, the person calls him by name, Pidgey Cheel. Then he finally looks back. A person holding our hero's flyer asks if it was really that guy, while another says that 2 months ago, Wei Sukin's gang was hospitalized. He asks if the incident at the pool hall was him too. John Jongsu says yes, that he's a subordinate of the new boss of Sumun High School, named Maedongo. He goes on to say they suddenly entered the room and demanded that he take the boss to Sumun and meal before the new boss there. Then he lies, saying he sent the guy away after a little beating, and says the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets. Jang Chunsil tears the flyer in half and says with a smile in his eyes that the world is getting really crazy. Sometime later, he tells the boy to ignore them, then asks if that guy wasn't the one who claimed to have retired Pidgey Cheel, and says it's obvious he's lying. He says he sold the name of the 12 nations and is clearly trying to stir something up. No one will believe the story that he beat up Pidgey Cheel. He's definitely trying to make a move toward them. John Jongsu listens as the other says he's raised a tough guy in his business. Then he clasps his hands and says that this kind of person will never have anything left in their path. These mosquitoes are only good to be ignored. Meanwhile, far from there, we see a beautiful building with a bus stop in front while it rains. On a cell phone, a woman says that today they will learn Chapter 3 and the basics of close combat of the Blackheads. 2 soda machines get rained on while someone calls Doyle and asks if he really thinks Wang Kwakui will go to Sumun School. Then he answers his own question saying no and asks what if he actually shows up there, and Kim replies that he will defeat him somehow. Then Donggu, with the grumpy face, says he's only saying that because he doesn't know Wang and says the guy is on a level of what he thinks. He asks for support from Jinju, who had been massaging our hero's shoulders until now, and he kind of agrees. Dongmu questions whether that man was really human or not. Our hero keeps eating calmly and asks what he meant by that. Then he says he was in his 3rd year of high school when he heard a rumor that Wang Kwakui had defeated a bear with his fists, and asks if it wasn't around the same time a black bear escaped from the Cheonglim Zoo, and Kim asked if that really happened. He says the bear caused a huge commotion in the city, but in the end, it was found unconscious because it had been defeated by someone. And people say the one who defeated that bear was Wang Kwakui. Our hero squeezes his juice box, making juice shoot from the straw into his mouth. Donggu yells at him to take this seriously, and our boy asks him what happens now. He says he already has a mountain of things to do. While they continue talking, we see a person on the school rooftop wearing a raincoat. That person watches them from above. Kim then says that Wang will definitely go there. Elsewhere, not far from there, the rain was pouring down. Someone calls Hyungnim's attention and asks about that guy Doyle. The man says he was going to stay in line, but noticed that his movements are a lot like Hachio's and asks if the other thinks so too. He says even that guy named Donggu is weird and asks if it's better to stomp them down before they grow further. Laughing, he replies, asking if the guy is saying he looks like Hachio from the National Federation. Still laughing, he adds that if that boy were like Hachio, he would have already been taken out. 2 girls show up saying they're coming in, and the man tells them to grab some drinks and enjoy being out in the rain. Then we see a lovely dinner set on the table. Smiling, he asks one of the girls if she knows him and introduces himself as Jang Chunsik from Sukdong, and asks where she's from, to which she replies Chinongal. Then he asks if Jang Hyunwoo isn't from there and wonders if he should call him or not while she sits beside him, and he puts his arm around her shoulders. The other man is slightly annoyed, thinking that guy should be looking after his own people instead of offering help to that stranger. Then he thinks that if he ignores Kim's threat, he might actually be taken out, but if he ends up becoming a double agent, it could turn out worse. While his friend asks something about the Sukdong operation being stolen by Sumun, he thinks everything's going to turn into a mess anyway. He puts his hands on his head in despair, thinking about his absurd social life. Suddenly, the warehouse door opens and John Jongsu notices. Someone walks in stammering, saying they have a huge problem, and the scarred guy asks what it is. The man says that Go Sukyuk is the guy in charge of the Unpyeonggu workroom and that it's been hacked. Jang Chunsik is stunned by the news. In a warehouse under heavy rain, we see a giant screen showing a picture of our little nerd and a message saying they've been caught and that if they want to know the password, they'll have to go to Sumun High School the next day at 8 p.m. John Jong-soo says that guy is Madongu, the guy from Sumun. Then another man picks up the phone and answers, already saying that if the call isn't important, but he's cut off mid-sentence and asks if the Sudaeman workroom was robbed. Then he loudly asks if the name he just heard was really Madongu. The man takes the phone from his ear and crushes it in his hand out of sheer rage. He screams, cursing our little nerd. Meanwhile, we see Kim walking in the rain with his umbrella. Suddenly, he stops. Then he puts his hand in his pocket. He notices a bike parked nearby getting soaked. After a few seconds of silence, we see our hero's cold gaze. Then he throws something upward, and we see someone in a raincoat on the rooftop watching him. Back to the scene with Jang Chunsik on the phone, asking what the heck a ransomware is and if he can fix it with the password. He yells at the person on the other end to speak clearly. Suddenly, the door of the place they're in bursts open. Someone enters, panting heavily as the scarred man looks at the door. The boss seems to enter the place. Jang's eyes widen as he wonders what the boss is doing there. Everyone present shouts, welcoming the boss and bowing. The scared guy breaks out in a cold sweat and gulps hard. The boss then, still silent, begins walking toward the fancy couch. Jang says that if they had known he was coming, they would have gone outside to meet him and apologizes. The boss sits comfortably on the couch. As we see a forklift and some pallets, the boss says one word, Sumun. He grabs a bottle of wine and starts drinking, spilling it all over himself as he asks where Sumun High School is. Jang asks the boss if he heard that right, and the other throws the bottle away. The bottle hits a metal beam and shatters into 1,000 pieces. He then takes a deep breath. Back to the prison scene as we hear someone say there's a new type of gambling game that's becoming popular in the prison, and that he came there to talk about money but is disappointed. Then we hear a wheelchair making noise. We see Wang Kwakwi saying to Pidgey Cheol that he has nothing to say to him since he is now a cripple. Pidgey raises his hand to the protective glass. Then he touches the glass with his palm. With his maniacal smile, he tells Wang to take very good care of himself. He goes on to say that it only takes a moment to end up like that and that even he can't do anything about it. Then he says that a demon lives in Sumun High School. We return to the warehouse with the boss staying to gather all subordinates and organizations because they are going to Sumun High. From there we go to Kim with his rubber bullet pistol in hand, asking if it's him who's been following him since the morning. Someone then says it's been a while and calls him captain. Then we return to Wang saying that the next day, Sukdong will go to Sumun. We see a beautiful building and a sunny beach in the morning in Busan, Republic of Korea. Someone says he could have gone to Seoul, but instead he made him come all the way there, and the other says his mother is in Seoul. Kim remains silent. His father says he likes ports and pieces of land and water-based transportation. Wearing a mask, he asks if that isn't romantic, and we are introduced to the head of the Blackheads and father of our hero, Kim Do-sung. He then says he missed the son he loves so much. Then he says it's been a year and then he should have already seen everything there is to see in Korea, and then asks when he will return and, in the next second, offers him a mask saying it's a new product. Our boy, with his arms crossed, says he already told his father once he will never return. The father, who has exactly the same bored look as the son, fakes surprise and asks if he doesn't care what he says to his own father. The father asks if he's upset because his account was frozen and says he has nothing to do with that it's the finance team's doing. Kim, with his impassive features, asks if that's all his father has to say. A moment of silence follows as we see a beautiful plant vase behind a mirror. Our boy stands up saying he's leaving because he has an appointment, but his father invites him to eat and wonders where he got his impatience from. Then the man says it would be easier to meet with the president, that he can't get used to dealing with his children. As our boy leaves, the father shouts from afar that he loves him. We see our hero walking away and the father calling his assistant Gyun. The assistant is an S-rank member of the Blackheads named Ji Gyun. He then asks him to take care of his son for him, who ends up causing extreme trouble wherever he steps. The father recalls what he caused in Japan and says he doesn't know how to deal with his son and asks if the boy doesn't get along with him. Then he says to find a way to bring the boy back to the city. The boy then places a hand on his chest as a signal of confirmation to the order given. Kim Do-sung says he will see the boy again at the Blackheads meeting. A few minutes later, our hero asks if the blondie wants to get taken out and why he is following him. On the Suwon High School soccer field, we see the entire gang gathered. On the field clock, we see that it is 7:51 p.m. The little nerd looks at his cell phone and thinks that Kim Doyle is a madman. He remembers Kim saying that Sukdong was coming and that everyone should be ready by 8 p.m. Sweet and cold, our little nerd thinks he was so confident in himself. Then he rereads the messages he sent saying he was going to cancel a plan because he wouldn't be there, but he said he would. Desperate, he wonders what he should do if Kim simply doesn't show up. The other asks why they're standing there in the middle of the field and Kangwook says he doesn't know. Then we flash back to a scene with a pack of cookies being shown. Then we see it's Kim asking Kangwook for help and offering him a cookie. Then in the present, Kangwook remembers that he had no choice and it didn't matter if it was a request or a bribe, he couldn't say no to those serious eyes. He turns to his friend and tells him to stay there and watch, but if they see things starting to go south, they should run away. Meanwhile, the other maniac starts laughing. Flexing his muscles, he says that a fight against Sukdong is everything he dreamed of since his military days. The little nerds around say they're jealous of his body as he shows off. Obviously, the cheerleaders Mina and her friend couldn't be missing with their outfits, miniskirts, and pom-poms. The girl tells Mina that no matter how you look at it, this looks like a gang fight and asks if that kind of fight really requires cheerleaders. Mina says a girl cheering is always welcome, no matter the situation. She then asks where Doyle is because she's getting tired of looking at those boys. Meanwhile, our little nerd keeps trembling in fear with the phone in his hand. He wonders where that damn guy could be hiding after causing such a huge problem. The clock shows it's 7:59 p.m. One of the guys asks if it even makes sense for them to fight against the Sikdong kids, and another says he should have left when he had the chance. Let's go to Yeongdongpo train station. A person walks calmly through the station. The blondie says he found his studio apartment near his house, and Kim said if he wanted to get taken out, then go ahead and do that. Our boy keeps walking while checking his phone. Looking at the time, it's 8:11 p.m. Then he thinks that he's really late. Distracted, he ends up bumping shoulders with someone. He stops to see who he ran into. Meanwhile, we see Mina asking if it's not way past 8 already, and if the game wasn't supposed to start at 8, and her friend says it's not a game, it's a fight. On the clock, we see it's 8:24 p.m. Our little nerd is sweating cold but smiling. He smiles and says it didn't make sense from the beginning. Donggu hugs his friend and says he knew Sukdong wouldn't come to that crappy school and that they almost ran away and became disloyal bastards. Mina says she brought fried chicken to watch the fight and wonders if she can tell them to fight each other instead. Some celebrate the fact that they didn't come, others wonder if they should leave, and some even question whether they should take a picture of that moment. Kang-wook says he thought they were going to show what they got today and asks his friend for a cigarette. However, his friend is standing there speechless, staring at something while Park Kang-wook calls him again asking for a cigarette. Trembling, the boy points at something. We see two men on top of a wall, then others opening the school gates. Several others shout and run straight toward them. Our little nerd realizes something is happening. Many people come in their direction while they're still standing in the middle of the field. He yells and says they came out of nowhere. Then he notices the chaos he caused. Among the crowd entering are the boss and the guy with the scar. We're introduced to some people like Jang Myongwon, leader of Kangsa High School and affiliate of Sukdong. Jang Doomin, leader of Munshin High School, another Sipdong affiliate. Ba Yuan, who is ranked 3rd at Sukdong High School. The buff Scarface guy, Jang Chunsik, ranked 2nd at Sukdong High School. And the boss, Wan Kwakui, who already arrives asking who the demon of Sumoon is. Meanwhile, we return to the scene of Kim bumping into someone in the street. We see that the person turns to him and says they finally reunited. The blondie stands still, watching the scene. As the camera zooms out, we see there's a crowd in front of our hero and the blondie. One of them puts a hand on Kim's shoulder and says that even if they let people pass once, they never let them pass twice. This person who placed a hand on our hero's shoulder is the leader of Nampo Urim, Ju Haeon. We see on the train station clock that at that moment, it was 8:24 p.m. Ju then asks Kim what he thinks about that. Right away, we see Donggu taking a punch to the face. He manages to duck and dodge the second one. Elsewhere, we see 3 soda cans and some steaks on a plate. Someone grabs one of the cans. Instead of opening it like a normal human being, the person rips the entire top off the can. We see that this someone is the boss, sitting on a little bench while our nerd runs around asking why they're only coming after him. In his thoughts, he tells his friend to wait while he watches himself being trampled by 2 guys. Suddenly, someone kicks his back. He ends up falling face first to the ground. The guy who kicked him says that's the boss Madonggu and tells him to crush him. Then he ends up being trampled by 3 guys as well, just like Changsu. The 4th step of the video comes to his mind. It was to use dirty tactics and brute force. Next, our nerdy guy sees a leg unguarded and bites it. He bites with the strength of his hatred. The guy whose leg is bitten screams in pain. The enemy asks what the hell that was that he did. Meanwhile, Kangwook's friend tells him they are seriously outnumbered and says they should run. He starts running and tells his Lumetic friend to run too. But Kangwook looks back and sees the little nerd being trampled and fighting bravely. And we thought he was going to go back and help, but he just tells his friend to wait for him and runs too. But our strong friend doesn't. He keeps crushing the Sipdong fighters. Screaming fiercely, he keeps knocking down 2 at a time. Jang Doomin looks at Park Jinju and thinks that crazy guy has already defeated 30 guys on his own. Then he thinks it was expected from the former number 3 of Iljeon High School, but aside from him, the rest are useless. The scared strong guy shouts for them to move and gather them in the center to finish them all at once. The clock shows it's 8:42 p.m. as he thinks there's something really wrong about all this. He wonders how those maniacs managed to infiltrate their system and how they got their boss to take such a step. Our little nerd manages to stand up, already completely wrecked, poor guy. His friends are also all breathing heavily, all injured. Jinju asks if that's the famous Sukdong hunting tactic. The camera pulls back and we see that the guys manage to surround them in the middle of the soccer field. Jang Chunsilk asks what they're waiting for, telling them to just finish them already. The crowd then runs to the center to finish off our boys. Mina's friend says this doesn't seem like a good time to eat fried chicken. She suggests the 2 of them report it to the police and Mina wonders why they're getting beaten so badly. Then Jang Doomin appears behind the girls and asks what they're doing there. We see the city at night with its shops already closed. Kangwook's friend asks him what he's doing and tells him to hurry up. Seeing he stopped, the friend asks if he's already tired. But in fact, he's remembering the image of our nerdy boy getting beaten, but bravely holding on. He tells his friend that he thinks he should go back to the fight. The friend says he's crazy and asks if he dropped his phone or something, because going back means getting dragged in. Kang-wook tells his friend that he promised to help, while remembering Kim giving him a cookie and asking him to help the nerdy one. He runs his hand through his hair and starts going back, saying he's Kang-wook, the eternally tormented, and that he's already used to pain anyway. His friend asks what kind of dumb logic that is. Meanwhile, in the school gym, Mina and her friend are being carried by him, and she says it's humiliating to be carried like that by an ugly guy and that she will have her revenge. Next, we see a person holding another's foot. We see our nerdy boy being dragged, all broken. Being dragged, he thinks that whatever the hand-to-hand combat rules of the Blackheads were, it was all just a bunch of nonsense. He curses our boy Kim Doyle, saying he's a damn fraud. Our nerdy boy is put on his knees, tied up and gagged. The others are also forced to kneel while trembling all over. Our strong guy is passed out on the ground. Wang Kwakui looks at them with his army behind him. He thinks it really was just a bad idea from the other school and wonders why Pidgeot Shield lied. Jang Chunsilk asks how they should deal with those kids. The boss says they must be punished and tells them to start with the guy on the left to gouge out one of his eyes. Next, go to the next one and tear off one of his ears, and the other beside him break his leg and leave him crippled. And finally, for the one who fought till the end, our boy Madangu just send him as a gift to God. In the battle for supremacy between Kangsu and Sumun schools, a troubled student ended up being tragically dragged during an unfortunate accident. Jang Chunsilk asks if that isn't a good story and asks the other guy what he thinks, and he confirms saying yes. Jung says he'll gather the ones with the record at the juvenile detention center and deal with all of it without any problems. We see a pair of trembling hands. Sang-hyul, the boy on the left, begs for forgiveness while the scared strong guy laughs and mocks him. He asks if the boy has finally realized the mistake he made. The boy screams, apologizing and asking to be forgiven just this once, saying he's truly sorry. Then he keeps screaming and pleading to be forgiven just that one time. A knife is then thrown on the ground in front of him. Someone says the name Maedongu while he looks at the knife with teary eyes. Wang asks if the guy who resisted and fought to the end is their leader. Then he tells him to finish off the boy, and if he does that, he'll forgive him. Sang-hyul breathes heavily, nervous, staring at the knife in front of him. Looking at the knife, he thinks about the punishment he received. He begins to reach for the weapon, trembling a lot. Then he finally picks up the knife. The others watch, smiling. One of his friends calls out to him when he sees he stood up. The boy takes a step forward, crying and clearly suffering a lot. He walks up to our little nerd, who stares back with his one good eye wide open. The friend still doesn't say anything and keeps holding the knife, trembling intensely. Then he asks his friend why the hell he did that. He wipes his eyes, asking why his friend did something so ridiculous. While the scarred guy covers his eyes, laughing, the friend asks what weaklings like them expected to achieve with all that. Sobbing heavily, he says that from the beginning, people like them never had a chance. The nerd thinks that they are good and enduring. Remembering all the times he got beaten and bullied, he adds that they could simply keep enduring. One of the guys wonders what the hell he's talking about, and another yawns, saying it's making him sleepy. Remembering a day on a bench by a lake, they said they had to help people like them. But who were they to do that? A scared guy approaches from behind and slaps him on the head. He curses the boy and tells him to stop crying already and stab his friend once and for all, and then he should hurry up before he wipes him out. The boy grips the knife with both hands, trying to tremble less, and fails miserably. Seeming to gather courage, he cries and tries to stay firm. The boy seems unable to move for quite some time, until finally the scarred guy gets really annoyed and yells at him to stab him already. Screaming, the boy lunges at our little nerd with the knife in both hands. Seeing the blow coming and unable to do anything, Dongu simply closes his eyes and braces for the impact. Then we hear the sound of impact and clearly don't see what happened. Instead, we see the girls tied up and restrained to a pole, complaining. Our little nerd looks back while he wonders if someone just arrived and if that someone is Kim Doyle. But the camera pulls away and we see someone holding a rubber bullet pistol. Park Kang-wook, stammering, says for them to stop with that right now and curses the Seepdong gang. The boy himself is thinking that what he's doing is crazy and that he shouldn't be doing it. He points the gun forward and thinks that ever since Iljeong's fall, everything that's happened since that day feels unreal. Then we return to a memory of Kang-wook accepting Kim's cookie and asking why he should help them if they're enemies. Then Kim asks him if he isn't from Sumun High too. Once again, still aiming at the enemies, he yells for them to get out of Sumun right now and thinks he's definitely gone insane. Then something rushes past Kang-wook at high speed, and we see it was the scarred guy with the knife in hand, saying that they were the ones who called Seepdong there and now want them to leave. The boy's legs start to give out. Our little nerd tries to scream his name, gag, as the boy collapses in front of him. Then we see the rainfall as always. The boy is injured on the ground while the scarred strong guy says he's tired of those sacks of shit. Then he brings the knife to Sang-hyul and says that if he doesn't hurry up and do the same thing to Dongu, he'll end up like the other one lying on the ground. We see the knife being handed to him, all dirty and dripping. Park Kang-wook is on the ground, injured and coughing. Dongu is panting heavily. The scarred man yells at Sang-hyul, telling him to stab him already. The little nerd is trembling all over and doesn't move. Then we see pictures like those from a photo booth. Then we see spotlights turn on as Sang-hyul, remembering the photos, says that people like them don't get second chances. He screams that they never had a chance to come in first place and runs at Dongu with a knife in his hands. Before he can finish it, someone yells out telling him not to do it. The knife heads toward the nerd at high speed. Our boy closes his eyes and turns his face away. Then his face is lit by a different light, like a headlight. Several guys are thrown into the air when a motorcycle comes plowing through them. The scared strong guy and the one in the cap stare wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before them. The boss remains impassive, standing still watching everything and everyone. The camera pulls back and we see Kim arriving with his blonde friend and the motorcycle in front near the boys lying on the ground. Mina, tied up, seems to notice that our hero has arrived. He asks the blonde you and how many opponents they have, and he replies 87. Then Kim said to help him, and he said of course he would. One of the guys with his hair tied up charges forward and asks who those two are. Without understanding, something happens to him. A second later, the boy is on the ground screaming in pain as the two keep walking toward the nerds. The nerds look at him in disbelief. Sanghyul looks at him with tears in his eyes and his face all bruised. Kim stares at the boy who couldn't hold back his tears. The boy buries his face in his hands, unable to bear our hero's gaze. He collapses, powerless, to the ground. He cries uncontrollably, ashamed. Our hero confidently tells him to get up. Then Kim says now it's their turn. At the train station, someone says the train to Busan is leaving now. The guy in the floral shirt calls his boss. He remembers the scene where they approached Kim and his boss said they could let one escape once but not twice. Then his boss said if they met again, it would seem like destiny to him. Then he invites the boy to go have some drinks, but he's completely ignored by both him and the blonde. The guy in the floral shirt calls him a bastard for so rudely ignoring his boss, while the boss himself says he must be in a hurry and tosses something to him. Kim catches that something in the air while the other guy tells him to use it if he needs to. He opens his hands and sees that he received a key, while the man says he has to take exit 1 right at the station's exit. Our boy sees the beautiful motorcycle as he hears the others say that next time they'll definitely have drinks together. We return then to the guy in the floral shirt asking why he keeps helping that kid. Then the boss gives a small smile. Back at Suun's school, a boy is unconscious on the ground. Then in another corner, we see 3 more lying down. And after that, we see the blonde and Kim easily taking down 2 more. Our little nerd is sitting there, jaw dropped, wondering who the guy helping Kim is because the 2 of them together took down over 70 people very quickly. Mina is now untied and eating her fried chicken while cheering for Kim. Then nearby, someone asks if they can call Kangwook Hyun. One of the nerds tries to chat with him, asking if his stomach was okay after being stabbed, and he says yes, after all it's him. He says he's the forever anguish part Kangwook, and it's been that way for months already. A little stabbing won't put an end to that. Then, opening his shirt, he shows that he came fully prepared, and we see he has a book strapped to his belly, and the other boy says he's glad to know that. The strong guy is still on the ground, unable to get up, thinking they better not forget about him. Meanwhile, Kim and the blonde are destroying the rest of the Seepdong crew. They wonder if it's really right for them to just sit there watching the other 2 beat up the Seepdong gang without helping. The little nerd remembers that when Kim arrived, he apologized for being late and saw that he was wrecked, and then told them to gather the guys and wait on the benches. Donggu says that, as much as he hates to admit it, with how injured they are, it's better for them to stay back and not get in the way. He then asks if the boss on the other side isn't strange, that he doesn't even move or change his expression while watching his entire team get wiped out. Next, Kim easily takes down another opponent. The camera pulls back and we see the boy flying and landing at the feet of the scarred strong guy. He laughs and says sarcastically that now he's really scared that Sumun High had been hiding their secret weapon all along. Then he adds that now it makes sense why he didn't understand why they were provoked by those nerds. Then, looking at our hero, he asks if it was him after all. A few seconds later, he says that Kim looked familiar and stops to think, asking if he was the one who took down Pidgey Cheel. He starts laughing and wonders if he's the Thunder Fist he saw on the flyer. The man mocks our hero, making fun of the Thunder Fist nickname, asking if he's still in 8th grade. Then charging at him, he says the boy doesn't seem all that special to have made one of the 12 nations retire. The first guy to unify Iljeong was Pidgey Cheel. Before he showed up, there was another guy at the school who almost managed to unite the forces. That person was none other than Jang Chunsik, our scared strong guy. People started calling him a loser after the incident between him and Pidgey Cheel, where he got his scar. But after conquering all of Southwest Seoul alone, he became known as Fear, and what really made him so terrifying was his brutality. We see a scene of 2 men holding a girl while he crouches in front of a man holding a pair of scissors. Jang tells the guy that to protect his girlfriend, he only needs to give him a finger, and prepares the guy's finger to be cut, asking if he's ready. Our strong guy suddenly stands up and says that guy is merciless and they have to be very careful with him. Then suddenly we see Jang scream in pain while clutching his left forearm. Our strong guy stares wide-eyed. Jang wonders what the hell just happened while gritting his teeth and holding his left hand. Then we see that Kim punched his hand, breaking the bone in the man's finger. Running a hand through his hair, he asks what the man is looking at with such wide eyes while wondering how he managed to aim there. Then he tells himself to stay cool and calm down, not to fall for his cheap tricks. Suddenly, our boy kicks him in the face. He thinks our hero likes to play dirty, but he knows how to play that game too. He'll pretend to fall for the kid's provocations. Our hero easily dodges the kick that Jang throws. The enemy falls behind him. Right after, he quickly turns his face around. The movement is so fast that the water falling on him takes a moment to register he's no longer there. As he gets close to our hero, he thinks about tricking him by pretending to be the crazy type who fell for his taunts and started attacking without thinking. He'll make Kim believe he's throwing completely random punches when in fact he's fully aware of what he's doing. Little by little, he'll build the path to his real attack. Meanwhile, our hero keeps dodging his punches with ease. The tactic is to flood Kim with constant attacks to the upper body, and when he lets his guard down, to throw a guided punch to force him to duck. And just as he predicted, it worked. He aimed a perfect knee strike to our hero's face. Our strong guy grabs his head, saying that was Jang Chunsik's specialty, the famous face-breaking knee kick, and it really looks like the blow landed squarely on our hero. But something hits him in the face right after. The man wonders what the hell that is. Then we see that was a quick uppercut. The strong guy goes flying as he wonders how that was even possible if he attacked the boy first. A flurry of blows hits Jang, who is now disoriented. He screams and drools in pain, wondering what the hell is going on. Then the strong guy remembers seeing him defeat the other guys and thinking that he didn't seem like much. The position he was in and the timing weren't supposed to let him do what he just did. He struggles to stay on his feet while breathing heavily and thinks he made an unbeatable move. Looking at our hero, he wonders how his fist ended up there. Then, imagining the battlefield as a chessboard, he wonders how many moves ahead the boy is. While trying to land a punch on our hero, he questions what that strange feeling is that he started to feel. Watching Kim's fist approaching, he senses he's about to get punched, and he really does, right in the middle of the face. The force of the punch makes him step backward. We see a beautiful lamppost full of lights in front of buildings number 107 and 108. Jang thinks that he clearly saw Kim's fist coming at him, while holding his nose that seems like it's about to fall off after the punch. He removes his hand and sees that 2 of his teeth have also fallen out, and he thinks that even knowing the punch was coming, he couldn't dodge it. Staring at our boy and holding his teeth, he thinks it's as if he defies all logic. Starting to panic, he once again asks himself what the hell is going on. He sees himself in a different setting while wondering who or what that thing in front of him is. Stammering, he asked our hero if it was really all true, if he really did what he did to Pidgey Cheel. An insanely powerful blow lands square on his head. Our little nerd is surprised at what he sees, even with just one eye, since the other is all swollen. The blonde guy also shows a mild look of surprise. Jang flies several meters from the punch he took, and none other than his own boss was the one who threw the punch, sending him to the other side of the field. Jang's face was caved in from the sheer brutality of that blow. Wyman buttons his shirt. He walks a bit more to stand face to face with our hero. Taking off his button-up shirt, he asks if it's really him, the demon of Simoon. Kim, bored as always, starts scratching his ear with his finger. The boss throws his shirt on the ground, which is full of defeated men. The guy in the cap greets the blonde, both of them accompanying the main fighters. Kim stares at the boss, pretending to notice just now that he was there too. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.